everybody, family, welcome to Swahili Nation, One Africa. It's good to see everybody joining here, guys. What's up? Let us know, guys, where you're joining from. It's a beautiful day, and we thank God for giving us this chance and this opportunity to come here and to have this conversation. All right, it's been a moment. We haven't gone live, but it's a privilege to be here, man, to be with you. It is a privilege, and I'm so humbled to be here to talk to all of you guys and to just have this conversation. Let me just tell you this, that tonight's session will be very interesting. Well, we are here. You guys, you know what is happening, but we're gonna basically talk from Africa's perspective, how everything that is happening, is going to affect Africa. But not only that, but what is Africa stands. We're just going to hear different opinions. I'm not going to be the only one talking here, but I have brothers, people that are invited in this session today. So we're going to have very interesting conversation. I believe we might have like 4 different people, individuals here, but currently I have 2 brothers already logged in. And also I'm waiting for His Excellence, Mr. Ezra. He's going to be here with me. What we're going to do is this, that we, His Excellence Ezra will give us a recap, a little bit of what is happening. And also we're going to hear from other people who are here with me. They'll give their recap of what is happening basically in Israel right now and Palestine. They'll give a recap a little bit, just in case if you don't know anything. But I know most of you guys, you know a lot of stuff, what is happening there. But we're going to give that just, for the sake of informing those who do not know. And then we're just going to dive into the topic that how the Israel-Palestine war affects Africa, or is going to affect our continent, and what, where can we stand? And, we'll have that. Yes, we'll have that opinion. I don't know. Everybody who is joining me here today, I don't know their opinion. I don't know what they're going to say. But that's the reason why we're having this conversation. But also, I'm inviting everybody here in the comment section for you guys as well to raise your own opinion. I've already seen some of the messages, people expressing their views, their opinion. It's not a sin. So you can express your opinion. You can express your view. What is our stand? And, how this is going to affect our continent and our people, and what should we do? Because it's very easy to be swept away with everything that is going on. There's so many events all the time it's happening, right? It's very easy to lose focus. It's very easy to lose, our focus, what we're fighting for and what we want to happen in Africa. But I think it's always very important for us to have that single focus, to focus on one thing and one thing only. And so we're here for that, if just in case if you've been losing focus for the past few days, well, we're here to remind each other about that. His Excellence Ezra, I'm waiting for you, brother. But before I begin, let me just shout out to everybody who is joining. I appreciate you guys. Let us know where you're joining us from. Type the country you're watching from right now. We have a lot of people here joining. We have Herbert, we have Bant, we have Ismail, we have Ize, we have Marit, the family right there, Sophia, our member in the family, Jacqueline, Ja, and we have Shango, the member right there. Appreciate for coming and becoming a member of this family. We have Nekisha, we have Proto, we have Esubaleo, we have Eleri, you're here, my brother. It's been a while. I haven't seen you for a while, man. I'd love to see you contributing as well. You have been such a rock in the past with your opinion and everything. I see His Excellence is right here, so I'm gonna bring him in right away because we're gonna be hosting together this session. His Excellence, welcome. It's good to see you, my brother. How are you doing?
Good to be here. Thank you, His Excellency, for the invite. I'm happy to join the family and discuss this matters at hand, this big developing story. But I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for being willing to do that, because I know you just got home right now. You didn't even take a rest. So I really appreciate, man, for that commitment. And I told you I have a surprise for you, so just wait for it. It's coming, but I really appreciate for you being willing and be here, man. To this end, you have no idea. It's a big one, and I'll be very excited. So I'm very excited. Yeah. So His Excellence, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna raise a word of prayer, little quick, and then you give us a recap, a little bit of what is happening, what's actually a recap of everything, between these two countries. But also afterwards, I'll invite our brothers. Our brothers are here already waiting in the studio. We have 2 brothers already in the studio, so they will be here. We'll bring them in as well to give their opinions and their views, and then we just dive in right away to this topic. To just basically, we've already started already. So let me just pray a little quick, and then I will. You take that lead to give us a little bit of recap of everything. Okay. All right. All right. Well, God, I thank you for today. I appreciate for giving us this moment to come here as a family to talk about this beautiful continent we love, and everything that is surrounding and all the situation that is happening. We pray for your wisdom. We pray for the understanding and the knowledge, and most importantly, God, we pray for the peace of this continent, the peace of this world. So we submit everything in your hands, and we invite you into this session. In your precious name, Christ, we pray. Amen. 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 And amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
My brother. So, without wasting time, let's dive in right away. You give us a recap of what is happening or what has been happening. But for those who are watching, don't hesitate to like this stream. Please like and also share with friends, with neighbors, and also you can comment as well. You can let us know in the comment section as we still talk. And also just remember that we have a petition going on One Africa right now. So remember to sign that petition as you're watching this. We still need One Africa right now, One Africa in our generation. So sign the petition, and I'm gonna drop the link in the comment section right now. For you. Okay, it's already there. Yeah, so please sign the. It's good. I love the team. That's the teamwork right there. All right, so yeah, guys, keep signing that, and His Excellency.
Thank you, His Excellency. Thank you, family. Um, um, as we know, we've been having this developing story where we can just say it's a war between now Palestine and Israel. From Israel's side, it has been declared as war against them. As we know, like 2 days ago, there's been uh, uh, um, an attack from the developing stories that we've been seeing. It's that uh, the Hamas in Palestine started firing rockets from Norway. I think the Israelis were not expecting this attack. It was a surprise attack. I mean, it's talking about between 2,000 or 4,000. It's just different numbers in terms of the rockets that were fired into Israel's territory, and also um, even breaking the border lines between Palestine or the Gaza region into Israel, and people being held hostage as well. And and Israel has also responded from their side, and they've declared war. That it's war against them, and it's all now war from their side, and they've started targeting the military installments in the Gaza section, or in the Gaza Strip. So we've been seeing a lot of developing stories in terms of that, and we've seen even people that have been held hostage from Israel. Now the Hamas group, they're talking about having some hostages that they'll probably be trying to uh, uh, um, use as a leverage to get some of their prisoners out or released from Israel. So it is a big story, and it's still it's a story that has been. We know that this wars do not be they didn't begin now. It's been an ongoing wars, and some of this wars it's not something that has to do with 1948, because I know a lot of people tend to look at the history from 1948, the 1967 wars and stuff, where the reestablishment of the Israel as a nation again. People tend to sometimes look at it that from that perspective, to say Israel is it's an apartheid a regime, it's oppressing the people of Palestine, and also the some of the issues about even some territories that Israel has been using or taking from the Palestine in the West Bank region. There's been a lot of stories regarding this, but we know that the history, it goes far beyond that. The state might have been re-established now, but the state of Israel has been. It's an old state as well, and but then, yes, we know that there's always these different views about the people of Gaza, or the Palestinians, feeling that they are oppressed by Israel, and also not recognizing the state of Israel as an independent state, and always calling them as occupiers and all those words that they've been used. Um, And also the Jews as well, they believe that it's also their homeland, and they believe that they have the rightful place to be there, and also the state of Israel as a state to be recognized internationally as a state and as an independent state. But we know that has been a big divide between people who sympathize with the Palestinian people, and tend to say Israel is a apartheid state, because they feel that they are oppressing the people of Palestine. But on the same hand, when you look at this war now, not really looking so far much back, looking at the developing story now with this war, we are seeing that there's a lot of Hamas as the sort of a military wing of the current government in that part of the world. They're the ones that first started with this, and also, I mean, capturing civilians, um, and obviously just firing rockets at even the innocent people, because in all the wars, eventually the innocent people are going to be affected. And when Israel also retaliates, the people will say, now, Israel, you are bombing the places where there's civilians. And Israel has always also said that the Hamas group has been using people as a human shield. They'll provoke Israel and then hide between the community so that they don't get attacked. So it's always on both sides. They're all pointing fingers on each other, and and also what's this? Uh, uh, when for example, when Hamas started this, triggered this war now currently, when they fired the missiles into Israel, Israel wasn't really prepared, wasn't even thinking of any war with them. And now, obviously, as any independent state, they're also trying to retaliate to say, hey, um, cannot attack our people, cannot attack our land, and we just fold our arms and just and stay there. So, but we know this is a really a long. This is a historical wars. This dates far back before even uh, um, now what is now called now the new state that is Israel. But as a state, Israel is it's a nation that has been there for thousands of years. It's not some state that just started in 1948 or 1967 or whatever people would like to reference some of this history. But it's an interesting place where um, it depends on where you fall into. And there's been a question that you've asked, His Excellency, where how is it affecting us in Africa, and how is it affect how this
Oh,
war, how does it
is
affect
that
us?
before we go there, His Excellence, because I wanted to get a recap of this, especially for someone who maybe do not know anything about what is happening. So I want us to dive into that first before we go to this question and start answering this question, right? So I hope I did not catch you. You were about to go there, right?
Yes, definitely is.
Oh, oh yes, His Excellency. So I stopped you there for a while. I'm gonna bring in our two brothers that are here in the studio right now with us, right now, as well, to hear, if there's any information that they would love to give. Because we don't want to really go into all the details of this thing, because the goal of this stream is not to talk about this war, but basically to talk about the side of Africa, by using what is happening, because what is happening there is actually affecting the entire world when you see it in the bigger picture. And you see right now, as the US siding with Israel, there are nations that are siding with Palestine as well. So everybody's choosing their side, right? At the end of the day, it's no longer Israel and Palestine then war, but all these nations across the world, they'll be in a war, right? This is how the World War One started, World War Two, started. And we don't know, what is going to happen after this. So it's very important for us to talk in the perspective of Africa and to see, all right, so what are we going to do? Because what is happening here is going to affect all of us in one way or another. And we're going to talk about how it's going to affect us. So without wasting time, ladies and gentlemen, let me take a moment to invite my brother, Gamma Cuba, in the house, and my brother, Han Star. Yeah, I don't want to call you by your name, because I don't know if you want me to call you by your name, because you did not write there. So I'm just gonna say that. Gamma Cuba, welcome to the family, man. It's good to have you, brother. How are you?
Colleagues, I'm so well. I'm super excited to joining you tonight, and I'm super interested in hearing views, and I share my own views as well. Thank you so much. I pass my greetings to Ezra.
Appreciate, sir. Appreciate, sir.
Appreciate it.
Well, we have our brother Nikki as well in the family. Nikki, welcome, man. It's good to have you once again.
Thanks for having me here. Yeah, you can go by Nick. That's why I go everywhere. This is shorthand for Head and Shoulders Above the Rest. That's what it stands for. But because that's my YouTube channel. But yeah, I have that there. So yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm just gonna say this short comment, and then once we get in, then I'll be speaking later.
Definitely. So you gentlemen, do you have anything that you'd like to add in the recap of what His Excellency said about the situation and historical background a little bit? We're not really going into details, but if there's anything you want to add right before we go to this question, then you can go ahead and then we'll dive into this question.
I guess I'll start by going.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, this whole tension is a buildup of so many decades and decades and decades, and really goes back hundreds and even further than that. But if we want to go to the modern context where Britain had them as a colony and then decided to form them and say, hey, here's Israel on top of Palestine, because it was called Palestine at first and whatnot. And so, I mean, the tensions there, they couldn't handle it anymore. They said, man, let's get out of here. And there you go. Obviously, the U.S. is always backing up what the current regime is for whatever their own personal reasons are. And yeah, that's kind of the background that I would give as an overview there. Otherwise, what I've seen from Black people worldwide, we really don't too much concern ourselves with what's going on over there, other than a humanitarian issue. That's what I have seen. So from a historical standpoint, it's like, okay, you need to stop the suffering and stop the torture of what's going on with the people there, because that's not right. But outside of that, us personally getting involved or taking sides, I think the regular, average, everyday person, including myself, we don't really take a side, because there's the so-called two-state solution, and then the one state, and some people are like, yo, reset it back to where it was, and then everybody pull out and let them handle it on their own. I think that approach, me personally, if you just like reset it where it was, pull out, let them scrap it out, because all the meddling makes things worse, then let them handle it on their own. Obviously, there's going to be some things that happen, but obviously that's what they have to handle on their own. So that's what I have to add with that right now.
I appreciate Nick. Gamma Cuba, my brother.
Colleagues, thank you so much for this platform. First of all, I'm an emerging theologian with theological background. I'm emerging because I'm accomplished, right? But this is something that I have, intricate reflections on, and I would like to give, a fervent viewpoint, right? And we must understand we are not just dealing with a political issue, we're dealing with theological issues, right? Theological history is not, in general, secular history. This is religious history, right? And so what you have the Judeo-Christian, Islamic point of view that says, from Adam to Noah, from Noah to Abraham, from Abraham to Isaac, and then, Ishmael, and then there's this spread, right? And so, this is something then that's definitely connected to, the convictions of the people. That's the first thing, and convictions are not spiritual only, colleagues. They're also very psychological. We must always remember that religion is a bridge that transfers values, cultures, and systems into societies. And so I would like to contribute and say the first thing that we must accept is that, we're going to deal with very sensitive topic that affect a lot of people's convictions and views and so on. Whether it's Palestine or Israel, these are convictions. And whether we agree historic or non-historic, these are convictions. And so we can't just, brush it with a little bit of Abrahamic covenant and spirituality to make it feel nice. we're going to have to deal with the intricacies with a realistic point of view. Thank you so much.
Appreciate that, Gamma Cuba, and I'm glad I did not know that you have that knowledge, but it's pleasure to have you, because now I know our session will go pretty well. Yeah, so guys, let's dive into this topic. We are talking about how the war and what is happening right now is going or is affecting Africa. And His Excellence, you're about to start that. I'd love to give you a floor and to share about that and your view about this matter.
Yes. Regarding how should we now go to the part where how is it affecting us and as Africa? Uh, 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 oh, I thought Gamma wanted to say something, but anyway. So yeah, regarding how it's going to affect us, I think right now this is way bigger than if we had to look at Russia and Ukraine. In terms of choosing sides and all that, somehow nations will be forced to choose sort of pick which side are you into and which side do you support, on what ground do you support it. And I must agree with Gamma there about the historical background, where there's more to it than just what we know as a state today, and the wars that are happening. As also Hansta as well said, that this is like something that is historical. It's something that it started a long time ago. It's not something that starts now. We know biblically, yes, some of some of these things are on record, and those who sometimes follow even the Holy Bible, they even have a reference some of the prophecies, and others have already passed. Others, they still believe they are still coming. And looking at this history, or looking at how it's going to affect Africa, somehow, if you look at even with the war in Ukraine and Russia, somehow Africa was forced to choose a side. And many African states, they had to choose the neutral state because they are benefiting on both sides. It's not sometimes it will be a matter of you choosing side because of economics, or you're choosing a side because of past history. You've helped me before, and I want to return the favor now because you once helped me, especially with many African countries. When you look at the history between Africa and Russia, with their liberations movements, were really most of them were funded by the Soviet Union. Hence, somehow they have a soft spot for Russia, and they'll not really side with the US when it comes to such cases where they'll have to take a harsh stance against Russia, even So coming back to this case of now Israel and Palestine, it's also where the first division I'll start with is belief systems. We've seen that a lot of belief systems, people now get divided according to, you side because now you're a Christian, you side with Israel. You're a Muslim, you side with Palestine because you feel that the Palestinian brothers are in a struggle, they are in an oppression. So there's been that divide. Hence, even Israel, whenever it was most of the wars, if you remember, even now, Israel at some point didn't really have a lot of good relations with the surrounding nations. Ask yourself, because most of the wars that were against Israel, the modern wars, not talking about the old wars, like the modern wars that happened, most of them, it was the nations around that fought against Israel because of Palestine. So this is something that can still put us again into the same scenario where Israel the other nations around it, because of brotherhood, people can still gather and say, our brothers are in struggle, we'll join forces and we'll go and fight Israel. And hence, even the US, how the US comes into the play, where it stands mostly with Israel, is the same thing as well, where they will say, our interest, we side with Israel because of our interest, because of our belief system, and also our collaborations that we've already done before. So that's where the divide comes in. And also looking at superpowers being involved in terms of who chooses the sides, That's where now nations will decide. And you might see again a lot of nations saying, no, we'll remain neutral. We're not going to support Israel. We're not going to support Palestine. Because if you side with this side, financially or economically, you might not benefit, or you might lose some of your benefits that you were getting. We've seen that a lot. Even South Africa was under a lot of pressure to choose a side, but it kept on saying, we'll remain neutral, and also being forced to arrest the Russian president if he had to come for the BRICS summit. But they tried to remain neutral, but there was a push to say choose. So another thing, it's gonna be political, it's gonna be religious. The division is gonna go there. And looking at this, Africa, the northern part of our continent, we know mostly it's the belief system. Most people there believe in Islam. Some of them, they still believe they really are in solidarity with the Palestinian people. And then you look at the Christian side as well, will say, no, Israel is our holy land. And out of all the holy land, out of the holy places, religious holy places, it seems like Israel is the only one that's targeted. But when you look at other places of so-called holy places of other religions, they are not targeted. No one is threatening to say, because you guys are there, we will fight you or we'll go and destroy this. So you'll get people obviously be divided according to say, Israel is our holy land, we will protect Israel. We will side with Israel regarding this. Some might say, no, but you are oppressing people. Israel needs to be wiped out of the map. We've seen some political talk from countries like Iran saying Israel must be wiped out of the face of the earth. So obviously Israel will say, oh, okay, we are being threatened. They'll also arm themselves. They'll be ready to say, we'll defend their land. They will also defend their place. And whether people say, no, Israel, we're not going to recognize it, it is a state. And people have to now accept it. Whether they accept it or not, they have to accept it and try to get the two parties to come together to get peace, to negotiate, share the land if the lands need to be shared. All those things need to be addressed, but not emotions and belief system to be put in place. But then we are going to see ourselves going into that, because in most cases with this, we know when the US comes in, chances are we're going to see NATO coming in. All the nations in NATO will just have to toe the line. This is our stand. And then you have all the countries that are not aligned with NATO. There will be another side. And it's just going to be interesting to see the developing stories in the coming weeks, days. And if you look at this, it's like it took away all the attention that was on Ukraine and Russia at the moment, because everyone now looked at the importance of Israel and Palestine.
Absolutely. You say something very interesting that I think even people who are watching here, you guys should think about it. I see a lot of comments about, this topic and what we talk about here today. We are actually with you guys. We're together with you. But remember one thing that His Excellency has mentioned here, that anything that is happening in this world, like, for instance, Ukraine and Russia, you have seen the pressure that it was on Africa to push us to decide and to choose the side, which side to be on. And you all know which side we were being pushed to go with. The same thing is going to happen with what is happening right now. So in Russia and Ukraine, maybe we're not prepared. And that's why we're having this conversation today. And also, I remember what Nikki shared before at the beginning, I think he shared something that it just jumped right now. But I think it's very important for us to have these kind of conversation, because it helps us to see things clearly in our perspective. That I remember what Nikki shared. Nikki shared about it's very important for whatever conflict that is happening in the world to leave it between those two countries, to leave it between Palestinians, to leave it between Israel for them to figure out. But when you start seeing one nation coming and join, that there's a lot of nations that are coming behind them and joining. And the enemies of that nation, they're going to go to the other side, right? And eventually Africa as well, it will be forced to choose the side. And guys, some of our leaders that we have, they will choose side. We'll see it happening here, right? So, that's why we're having this conversation, just in case if you're not still getting what we're trying to say here. So before I welcome Nick to share his opinion, and then we'll go to Gamma, we have our brother here, Niger, just joined us as well. Niger, say hello to the team. It's good to have you here. Welcome, brother.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, man. Welcome back.
Awesome. What was the introduction you had so I can catch up?
Yeah, I'll tell you, but in the moment, we were just talking about, we did a little bit of recap of what is happening with the situation in Israel and Palestine. That was the recap. We've done that. We finished with that, and now we are talking about the topic of today. What is the effects? I mean, this war is going to bring to our continent. So I was about to let Nikki shared his opinion, and then we'll go to Gamma Cuba, and then we'll come back to you, Nigel. All right, hang in there tight.
Okay. All right.
Appreciate it, brother. Nick, you're next, brother.
All right. So, in terms of this, on how it's going to impact the rest of Africa, as I was thinking, as you guys were speaking here, I just realized all you have to do is really just pull up the map on where Israel is, and that's kind of like a corridor. So think about how Africa is now getting closer to China and Russia. Well, that's a gateway. This would be a perfect spot for, let's just say it was, because it seems like it is. I mean, the Israeli president was just about to be ousted. Like this guy is very unpopular. People are going against him, and then poof, this pops up. And now he's like, yeah, I'm leading the charge. And then that has basically dropped. Even he was so unpopular that even the United States was kind of distancing themselves from him. That's how bad it is. And U.S. usually is like everything that they do, we're behind them 100%. But if you look at the map, and I'm glad you pulled it up, there's almost no way to get around where that is. Think about China, Russia, or anybody trying to send resources into Africa and do business right there, other than obviously going by boat or by plane. But a lot of movement is still done by trucks, by trains, and everything. Like most of movement around the world, when you're talking about different continents and different states, aka countries, is done on land. So this is a major spot. Now, what we notice is that no matter if some country is having a civil war, I can guarantee you right now in Sudan, if Sudan is having a war right now and it gets worse and worse and worse because it's kind of got hijacked by the West. Well, Goodyear, the tire company, is still going to get their business. KFC, McDonald's, whatever, they're still going to get their business. But something tells me that this particular situation right here is going to block off a lot of resources into Africa. I mean, that is a huge blockade. The equivalent to how India is to the rest of Asia is how this spot right here, what they call the Middle East, is to Africa. Because that spot, that corridor right there is blocking off Egypt, is blocking off Sudan, Libya, Eritrea, and the rest of the locations. You can kind of get in through the tip of Jordan if you really look at it, but I don't know how big that border is. I haven't been there personally, but looking on the map, zooming in, there's like a small tip, I think, but I'm not sure. So even still, that's kind of landlocked. That's my perspective here, that it's going to start slowing down. It can't stop it, but it's going to slow down drastically the land transportation, especially when we look at this as a geopolitical thing. The U.S. and the West is going after Russia and China. That's everybody knows this. They're not even hiding it anymore. So at first it was just Russia, Russia, Russia. Now they've literally come out and was like, we need to decouple from China. So in that case, since this is a whole geopolitical thing and Africa gets caught in the crossfire right now, being weak, that's what happens when you're not really strong. You kind of get stray bullets, stray bombs, and everything. So Russia and China is expanding into Africa. They're making it very loud and clear, more than even South America. And I think for obvious reasons, because they're literally connected. But the U.S. and NATO has now expanded into Africa. Like, wait a minute. How come that went from North Atlantic to what kind of African country is North Atlantic? No, there's none. But they're now expanding into Africa. And I can guarantee you this. or almost guarantee, because I can't guarantee that at all. But I can almost guarantee you that this is going to affect the resources, like that grain deal where Russia said they're going to give free grain to certain African nations and everything. That's going to slow that down drastically. And I think that's what it has to do with Africa, if we were to connect it right there. Because I don't think that this happens in a vacuum. A lot of times they already can predict. They've shut down many other movements, but this one seems like it caught them off guard. I'm a little bit skeptical of it. But again, whether it's real or not, I think the situation, a chaotic situation, are used by those in power to make sure they get more power. And I think this is going to be a handicap to the rest of Africa. I almost guarantee it. And that's my thoughts on that so far.
Yes, sir. Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Come on, Cuba.
Thank you so much for such a detailed engagement, you know, and I think it really touches on something. Funny enough, you know, what our brother Nick highlights on is the reason that particular strip of land in history became significant. Of course, we, of course, bring in spirituality into it, because we're people of, you know, what you'll forgive me, my son with me, you know, because we're spiritual people. Human beings live from inside to outside. But the fundamental reason why Israel became significant is because it was a trade route. It still is a trade route. And, you know, when there were no flights to fly above, and now people still have to use trucks, the Roman Empire needed it, Asia needed it, Africa needed it more so, and the whole world needed that strip of land. And so the context around that piece of land, which then was occupied by, you know, the semi-nomadic people called the Hebrew, who just happened to be in that space, right? You know, then they would be attacked by the Romans, by the Egyptians, by the Asians, and then somehow that trauma then all of a sudden develops and, you know, creates hostility against everybody. Everybody's here to get us. And I want to put into context, there is nothing rich about Israel in terms of mineral resources. It is a dry piece of land that is rich only in tourism. Here in South Africa, it is the size of Kruger National Park. And, you know, of course, with a massive GDP of 480, you know, $billion, South Africa is like 419 or $411 billion is GDP. But what Israel has been able to do, it has been able to position itself through its religious history to becoming the center of the tourism of the world. And second to that, what Israel has then been able to do through religious propaganda. I'm a Christian, a believer, bona fide, but also I'm an activist and a realist. And so what I realized, when Israel, after 1945, a number of the so persecuted individuals who moved from Germany and the rest of the world into, you know, East Africa. First of all, we have to challenge the notion of it being called the Middle East. We don't know who's determining what's the middle of the world. You know, who is the center of the world? You know, Britain, another small strip of land, is the middle of somewhere. This is nonsense. You know, you'll forgive me, guys. I'm a little bit of a radical, right? You know, and secondly, they call it, you know, Middle East, east of where, you know, and so, you know, so we have to be realists. So Israel then positions itself through religious propaganda, and then we have a bunch of people that drive themselves into that space, and then they develop an ethno state. And actually, a research at Harvard said Israel is one of the most successful ethno states in the world. Beyond that, Israel then, after the Second World War, then pushed, you know, the startup nation agenda, where they then say we are going to be the strongest in terms of military development in technology. So where they are strong, they import, they import and mineral resources maximally to develop their technology. They supply technology, farming technology. So Israel is a startup nation. Every corner, is filled, with a startup, a small business that's, of course, Jewish owned, whoever Jewish people are. We cannot speak the notion of, Jewishness without necessarily mentioning that there's been some Jewish people who are overlooked in the state. The Igbo people of Nigeria, the ones in Ethiopia, the Lemba people of Zimbabwe, the Lembas of Limpopo, let alone that the African traditional religion has similarities to the ancient Hebraic culture that was practiced, before Israel. So there's a lot of discrepancies here. And I'm not anti-Israel, neither am I, anti-Palestine. I'm pro-humanity here, because for me, the choice is obvious. But the politics are, we are dealing with, a strong, propaganda that's driven through human being psychology. And I want to give just a little bit of background of the word psychology. The word psychology comes from the Greek word psyche. The word psyche just means, it means, spirituality. What is psychology? Psychology is the audited version of spirituality that human beings can understand, can record and repeat, and then share with human beings, right? So the word psyche is the word spirituality. It's nothing too deep. It's not spiritual. It's just what human beings have done. They took analogy and what they can understand of the human mind, and they put it together. And this is the propaganda we're dealing with. People who are so convicted with religious sentiments that have to do with this piece of land that is in the middle of nowhere, that cannot produce anything except grapes, and so on. And so then all of a sudden, we say, how does it affect us? Do you see the background? All of a sudden, the background then rubbishes this nonsense that how this affects us, guys. Because here we do have an obvious victim. And the victim is not religion, guys. In actual fact, religion from both sides is the perpetrator, right? And the victim is human beings. And the second perpetrator, colleagues, is capital. I am a capitalist. And I know very well that the fat pockets that grow are the manufacturers of ammunition. And so we are here. And if we try to, make this religious history and make it a geopolitical concern for Africa, of which in my view it is not. And though I'm a Christian, I'm also a South African, and a South African that has relations with Palestine, that also, recognizes Nelson Mandela's statements to Palestine. But today in a current South Africa, it is absurd for us to stand with Nelson Mandela, or as a Christian to stand with Israel, because we have no clue who Israel is. But as a human being, I am sure, colleagues, that geopolitically this will not impact us, not even an inkling with current wars in Africa that are happening. But it will impact the religious communities, the tourism to Israel. That strip of land will die. We will no longer spend African rands and African dollars and kwachas in Israel. And people who are dedicated and pilgrims who want to go walk where Jesus walked. Funny enough, the Jews there don't even believe in our Jesus, I believe in Jesus, but the Jews there don't believe in this guy, And so the tourism will be impacted. Not our tourism, but it will be our religious pilgrims that will be affected. So I want to put that statement. It will not affect us in my view. It will affect a number of other people. Africa is not an island of its own, but Africa is not a country, guys. This is a continent. Mika always says of 55 countries, the diaspora, is the 55th. So Israel will be impacted, but also, there's a lot of innate, difficulties that have to do with this. And so our concern should actually be human beings. In actual fact, we should, start a disarm campaign, not an anti-Israel or an anti-Palestine campaign, a pro-human campaign to say the human beings who are affected by the financiers of this war, and by the religious fanatics who are behind this war. They are part of the problem. And I know a lot of people then will draw some lot, of religious prophecies that are taken out of context. But I think, there are people who are currently suffering. I know that in Palestine, almost 11,000 kids were killed. But I also know that also in Israel, a lot of children are killed by Hamas, And so the people who are passing on, guys, here are the children, irrespective of what side of religion that should come out. And so I think God's heart into this is me now being religious here, right? God's heart into this is humanity, not politics. So I think we have come into a position where we as Africa have to bring in a human face to the world, because to be honest, people who are in Israel, these are Europeans. You know, we may sugarcoat it and say we're Christian. These are Europeans and Arabs. This is the history of violence from Arabs and Europeans. They've been killing each other from crusades to, you know, taking over Africa, you know, and so on and so forth. And so they're prone to violence, but we must bring a human face to the world and say, let's disarm our religious propaganda. Let's disarm our religious psychology. You know, let's arm ourselves and say we're human beings. Steve Biko said this is what we must bring to the world. You know, we must say the human beings, they are struggling. And so less of profits, less of government interests. You know, we know that these are important things for them. And let's focus on kids are dying there. You know, the elderly are being affected. The differently abled are being affected. I think this is the conversation I would like to get into, not how it economically affects us, you know, because we're not making money from Israel. I'm here in South Africa. You know, our government is bashing the Israel government because of one statement Nelson Mandela said. But I'm thinking the children in Israel and the children in Palestine, you know, and so my position is human, because humanity is central. Sorry for the long opinion.
Not at all, not at all. I appreciate, brother. So brother's position, just to do a little bit of recap, is that this doesn't affect Africa at all, and his side is we must focus and be concerned about humans and these innocent people who are dying, you know, right there. And so that's basically, as you say, that we must focus on that. But that's basically is another topic, because we don't really want to dive into this politics and this conflict that is happening there on the ground. But we want to focus on us and to see how what is happening there can affect us. Basically, like kind of like projecting the future, because we have seen a lot of conflicts like this in the past, and we can, like, we as an African, we can feel how this is going to turn out to be. Like, you can see it. Like, this is how it's going to turn out to be. Things like this, they'll be like this, people will be, and this will be an outcome. So that's what we are trying to dive in. Before I bring in Niger to hear his opinion, Nikki, do you want to respond to that? Because Gamma Cuba, he mentioned a little bit about, you know, your side about geopolitical and everything. But if you don't have anything to say about that, we're just going to go to Niger right away.
Okay, yeah. It's funny, you kind of read my mind. I took down a note. So I guess there's two things there. I would say that it does involve Africa for the reasons that I mentioned before. Obviously, the literal land mass where it is, we can't avoid it. It's like a situation happening like Taiwan is to China. If something happened to Taiwan, it's right there on its border. It's going to affect Japan. It's going to affect Australia. It's going to affect India. It's going to affect China. Those are the places that something like that would affect. Israel is quite literally landmass wise. Forget everything else behind it. Forget anything else and any opinions that you may have on any conflict. Even the history there, religion, non-religion, or anything. Any conflict that happens right there is literally the entire strip of the country. There's absolutely no border. I checked it right after I said it. There's no way around it other than by sea. You have to go by sea. So if somebody's delivering something and you're not, for example, supporting the regime that's in power, they might just say, man, forget you guys. If there's enough, if the majority of the continent is not in favor of them, or they're neutral, because that's how some of these things are. You know how the Russia-Ukraine thing happened. Oh, you're not against Russia, you're the enemy because you're neutral. Like, wait a minute, since when is neutral supporting somebody? It's literally like, yo, we're going to look out for our best interests. We're neither here nor there. So this is the same thing that I'm looking at here. And then also the one thing on the religious aspect of it, I mean, you mentioned it at the end with the that they're Europeans and everything like that. I kind of take a view here. None of the religions are of significance if the country itself is an anti-black racist country. If the people are anti-black racist, and I can't speak on all the people, but I notice sometimes people get stuck in politics, capitalism versus socialism, right wing, left wing, this wing, that wing. Actually, it doesn't matter when you actually look at the grand scheme that this could affect Africa, because if the regime gets in power, whoever takes power, and they don't like Africans and they have the control and they're saying, hey, China's helping them out too much, they'll block that thing off extremely quickly. So I think that's how it can affect it. I'm trying to keep bringing it right back there because that's the topic of what we're talking about today. But if there's a regime that don't like Africans, I don't care about what anybody says. They could be Muslim. Because think about the, quote, good Christians in the United States and everything, or all over the years. Slave trade, good Christians, where that is. The Muslims, slave trade, where that is. Capitalists, slave trade, where that is. Communists, treating Africans like they're a piece of crap. Where's that at? Democrat, Republican, Green Party, this party, whatever party you look at in Europe, all over the place, it doesn't matter. The only thing, because they try to confuse us with all these talking points, the only thing that matters is if that regime that's in power does not like what the majority, because all it takes is majority. Because if, let's say, Egypt is on the side, well, Egypt, they can let the stuff through real quick. They say, hey, look, we're on side of Israel. But let's say Egypt and all of East Africa is like against the regime that's right there. I mean, the rest of Africa is about to suffer right there. Because why would they allow something through to get to the rest of Africa when it has to go through East Africa first? What are they going to say? Yeah, you know what? We're going to let a couple of these goods go through. If they don't have an agreement like that, why would they even risk it? That's how some of these groups are petty, without naming anything. I named a whole bunch of stuff without naming anything there. Sometimes they're that petty. If you're not on our side, we're completely against you. We're going to punish you. So that's what I got to say on that.
Appreciate Nick. So let's go to Niger, and you guys, if you have your point, you can always write. We'll get back to that. Niger, welcome, brother. Can you talk? There's a lot of wind right there.
All right, I'll come back.
All right. Okay. We're gonna wait our brother for a second. Ezra, you want to jump in before we allow our brother? Somebody actually mentioned in the comment section. All right, so I think it's really good to consider what Ezra you said at the beginning, that it's very important for us not to talk about religious perspective of this. What I mean is not what Gamma you said, but I'm saying that these the conflict and everything that is going on, it goes all the way behind, like long time ago, right? You can start talking about Ishmael and Isaac and where we are today, right? That's basically what is happening and what is going on. And we know, like, just this, I'll be honest with you guys, just the normal reaction of the human being, if you have faith and you believe on something, you're just going to side with those people who are coming from the same faith as yours. Because we have that in our conscience, we have that in our heart, that I'm doing God's work. All right. We believe that with all of our heart. I'm not saying it's wrong, but we believe what we believe. You know what I'm saying? So we believe it could be like that. But for us, we don't want to take that road because it could be very, very shortcut. You know what I'm saying? And as Nikki said, a lot of problems that we have in the world right now, it is because of the religion. Right? Religion brought what we have it here today. You can name any kind of religion, and I can tell you what they've done in this world, right? And what has happened. So we want to take a very different kind of perspective of this and not just going there, so that we as a people, we can actually think critically and decide for ourselves that, all right, this is the road we're going to take, and this is what we want to do, for our people. Like our brother here say that, okay, you know what, I'm going to stand with humanity. I think no one innocent should, die. And, what is happening, it's just not right for the people to die. No matter they're Africans, they're not, but, they should not kill each other like that, right? That's the road he has taken. His Excellency Ezra, I would love to hear from you as we're waiting for Niger. My co-host, His Excellency.
Wow. Quite interesting points from everyone, and I must say that there's a lot of insight, and I think Hansa kind of like I highlighted the issue of somehow trade, looking at the Suez Canal and being close to, obviously it's more beneficial for Egypt, but it's if there's war there in Egypt or in Israel, sorry, it's bound to somehow affect that trade route, because we know that it's one of the busiest routes in the world in terms of trade. And if there's instability and war, chances are business, some companies might have to reroute some of their goods. And so this is going to be more than just Africa. I think it's somehow we can say it's not going to affect Africa, maybe just on the surface, but behind closed doors there will be talk, and we are going to have some of the things. I look at more the political side, where people might have to choose side, and also the religious side is still going to affect how certain decisions will be made, and in terms of who do you side with. And Africa might be divided when it comes to that, because we are a continent that is really diverse in our belief systems. And somehow that's where now the unity will be tested for Africa, whether Africa can say what Gama was saying about will you look at the human perspective to say the heart of God is for the people, and God loves everyone. And for us, if we truly love humanity and love people, we should be fighting that there's peace on both ends, and no one should suffer regardless of who they believe in. And egos of leaders being the cause of people suffering, you know. So it is going to be affect Africa. I believe it is going to affect Africa. I think sometimes we tend to take it, like even the Russia and I'm sorry that I'm going back to Russia and Ukraine. Somehow it has affected Africa indirectly, but somehow it has affected Africa to take its stand. It has affected Africa in terms of the grain. Countries that rely heavily on grain from Ukraine, they somehow got affected by this, or even grain from Russia. Those who buy grain from Russia, because Russia is also a big grain producer. So such things, I mean, will affect us in a way. I know that Gama really kind of just focused on Israel on its own, losing the people going there for religious purposes, for historical purposes. But again, there will be the political consequences. It's going to be something else. Remember, if there's war there, a lot of things might be happening. Some of the trade, we talked about the trade. I think Hansa talked about the trade being affected, and also looking at the instability of a nation, of those nations, and also the surrounding nations. And we've seen all the wars that happened in the past, they've affected the whole region there, especially around Israel, whether it's Saudi Arabia. And we've seen that Saudi Arabia is becoming closer to Israel nowadays. And even Saudi Arabia and Iran were starting to talk now as brothers, trying to reconcile, trying to fix things. So this can explode in terms of all these countries that were getting close. They might just fall off again, you know, because they might have to choose sides. What do you do in a case where you are starting to be friendly with Israel, and then you see now Israel are retaliating and bombing some of the people that you also sympathize with? You might say, "Nah, let's cut our diplomatic ties. Let's talk. Let's stop our talking." And once that happens, then we know that now sides are chosen. We know that America is going to choose Israel. And again, Saudi is now conflicted. They're selling a lot of their oil to America. You know, all those things. It's going to affect friends. How do we move? Are we still friends, or are we just friends because of money? Are we choosing friends because of my enemy's enemies, my friend? Because if you look at now the political space in the world, some people are not really friends. It's because now it's about solidarity. Oh, America is doing this to you. Oh, it's also doing this to me. Let us become friends. Let us create our own currency. Let us do this. It's something that when you look at some of these people are not really friends. They're just friends because of common causes or common problems that they are facing. So it's like even now when I'm looking at such things, it's going to go into that where people are going to choose side according to their own interest, and others are going to be because of money, others are going to be because of history. So somehow Africa is going to be affected. And again, what I like what Gama said about the Middle East, the term Middle East. Somehow Israel or that region is connected to us. Africa, remove the Suez Canal, we are connected. It's part of Africa. We are connected through this part of the world. You know, that's the only land a section that we can just pass and go to Israel, go to Jordan, go to Saudi, go up Lebanon, you name them, Syria, all these places. You can easily go through that. So, and again, how it's affecting Israel, I mean, affecting the Africa. Remember, I think Egypt has already issued a statement as well regarding this issue. They already issued a warning, and somehow you can see they are not happy with how Israel is kind of retaliating towards the Palestinians. So, and you know the history behind it, that Egypt, they've tried attacking Israel before, and we remember the wars that happened, the 6-day wars and all this kind of wars that happened, where somehow it was with the small army, they kind of lost the war in a way, regardless of people saying no, they retaliated, there was communication and stuff, but they really lost the war in a way because they had a lot of equipment that they lost during that war. So we don't know. This thing can affect, especially that region is very sensitive to the world. And again, we're looking at oil prices, guys. We need to look at the economic aspect of it. It will affect the world, because if there's instability in that region, we know that the price of oil already is going up. It's going to affect everyone else. We know with oil, it affects everything, the whole supply chain, whether it's food, whether it's anything, it gets affected. So it's going to affect Africa, it's going to affect the world. So that part of that region, it's so sensitive that it is going to affect everybody. Hence, everyone will want to have a say, and everybody will have to say something and try to get the two parties to cease fire or something. So I'm just going to stop it there. Maybe Niger has something to add.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you, brother.
All right. So in terms of how it's going to affect Africa, it depends on two things. If this is going to end quickly, then it might not really affect Africa. But if it gets prolonged, then it will affect Africa. And I'll tell you how. If it gets prolonged, then we're going to have refugees coming in from Gaza into Africa, because Gaza is connected to Egypt. They border with Egypt. So one, we're going to have refugees. Two, it might trickle in a little bit of terrorism coming in. Why? How does terrorism start? People that their family members were killed in an act of war that they don't believe in, then they want to retaliate, and then they join a group. They can easily be converted to become a terrorist. So that's how terrorism starts. So these are family members that have passed away. Three, food security. Also, the reason being, oil controls the world economy. You know, we're trying to get away from oil, but oil is still here. So as oil prices begin to rise again, it's going to increase the price of transportation, and that's going to increase the price of food, and that's going to increase the price of the people, traders selling it. So it's going to just affect food and then trade. If this continues and prolongs, it's going to affect trade coming in from the Middle East, not just Israel, but the Middle East, because Israel is a trade route into Egypt and then into the rest of Africa, or even through other parts that border the sea separates Africa, but through Egypt. Let's just stick with Egypt. Through Egypt. So that's how I believe these points that I made, that's how it's going to affect Africa. But just to give a little bit of historical context on what's going on, this didn't start the other day. It's been going on for a long time. We just don't hear about it because when it's the other side, the media don't report on it. Therefore, we don't talk about it. But now that, people in Palestine are the ones pushing, it's making news. And Israel is way more powerful than Palestine because they have intelligence, and the US supplies them all kinds of weapons. So for this to prolong, The only way I see this thing prolonging is if the enemies of Israel, which are the countries around Israel, join in. That's what the risk is. If Iran joins in and other countries like Iran, then that becomes a problem, because then the US will have to join in also. And then other countries that side with Israel will join in. So if that happens, aside from the points I made, that will escalate, right? That will escalate things. So that becomes a huge problem for the region. That would destabilize the Middle East, right? So the problem in Israel is that we know, Ishmael and his brother back Isaac in the biblical days, yes, and how all that went down. In the UN, when we say the UN, I'm not talking about an organization. I'm talking about the countries in that organization that have the powers to make decisions. So the UN decided how they want to split Israel. And that's where the problem started. Ever since they did that, and there's been conflicts since the biblical days, the land of Canaan, people fighting in the Bible. But when the UN decided to divide Israel, or however they annexed it, however they chose to annex it, that suppressed and oppressed the people of Palestine. And ever since then, it's made them weaker and weaker. Even till today, the Palestine people are not recognized as an independent state. So anything that goes into the Gaza Strip, anything that goes in and goes out, everything that happens in that area is controlled by Israel. They have to know what's happening. So the people of Gaza, the people that live in Gaza, the people of Palestine, they're not free. They don't have freedom. They are oppressed people. They have been killing them for decades. They have been killing them, but they don't make the news. That doesn't make the news because the Western media controls the narrative. So now that they did what they did, which I don't support, because it was brutal and the height of it, it made the media. And now everybody's focus is on Israel and Palestine. That's where if other countries join, that's where the problem is. But if other countries don't join, then Israel will quickly oppress them with weapons, rockets, and then they will stop. The people of Gaza, Hamas, they will give up and they will stop because people are dying on both sides. But now that Israel is retaliating, more people are dying in the side of Gaza. So that's the point that I wanted to bring up in terms of how, and I already said how it's going to affect Africa. So, the points I made initially, trade, refugee, terrorism, all those is how it's going to affect Africa if it prolongs. But if it doesn't get prolonged, then it won't.
Yeah. Appreciate Niger. Let me ask you guys these questions. All right. So we all know that right now, as I'm saying, currently, US is already siding with Israel, and according to the news, they've already started to send some weapon and everything, for the war to basically, it's kind of like they're promoting war to continue, right? By giving all the support that they need to fight against this group of Hamas. But we also know that African Union, you guys, the side of African Union in 2021, the side of African Union is with Palestine. It's according to a draft declaration on the situation in Palestine and the Middle East circulated among reporters at the end of the summit. The AU not only expressed full support for the Palestinian people in the legitimate struggle against the Israel occupation, decrying the unceasing illegal settlements and Israel intransigence, but significantly argue member states to all end all direct and indirect trade scientific and cultural exchanges with the state of Israel. So this is not a current news. This news, it happened in 2021, and so for a while, Africa Union itself has been on the side of Palestine, and you guys just heard what I shared. How do you think this is going to work out? Because we all know that African Union is not like an independent body. They receive a lot of support from these countries that we're talking about, for example, the US and European Union. And we see that the side of that is on the other side. And also we know that African Union is standing with Palestine. How do you think this is going to work out at the end of the day? Anyone, Gamma, you can go with that. And, Nikki, and yeah, I see Nick already unmuted there. You want to say something?
Yeah. Well, I think historically Africa has kind of been with Palestine, technically speaking. Just like you mentioned, Nelson Mandela and everything like that. So I don't think it's a surprising take, really. It's kind of like when you think about it from the logical perspective, if it were Palestine before, if this were Palestine before Britain decided they wanted to say, hey, we're going to hand the country over here and rename it, kind of like what they did with the rest of Africa, when you think about it, then I can see where most of Africa would, especially the politicians, I don't call them leaders, but the politicians, they would most likely side with Palestine, just from that spiritual perspective. I'll put it that way. From that historical and spiritual perspective, I think they would default to that. The average person may not know enough information, so they would probably default to who knows and let them figure it out. I'll go back to that. Talking to most people is like, hey, we don't like the suffering that's happening, but I think that's where it goes. I think that's where it is pretty good there. But yeah, I think they will be siding with Palestine from that perspective.
Awesome. Colleagues, there's something that Niger said at the end that to me bewilders me, that it is not the major issue in this discussion. The human beings that are suffering. I want to continuously, relate this because it happens in corporate as much as it is happening now with physical warfare, right? That we prioritize things more than we prioritize people. And it is just in our psyche, at the background of our thinking, where we say the infrastructure will be destroyed. The company's machinery, someone, in a research that I read, they said the aggression for physical warfare during peaceful times is transferred into businesses. And so the domination and the desire for victory is transferred into businesses. And so people then conquer territories. The new Napoleon is Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and those people prioritize things. They say our businesses, our equipment, our market share, our profit margins, and more than they will say the people. And I think the moment we emphasize this, and we are then again taken back to the demographics of the discussion. When we say Africa is 1.2, 1.4 billion people, Israel and Palestine put together is 15 million people. And when we talk about de-escalating this matter, our priorities versus geopolitical priorities are super significant. And this is to say, what do we actually prioritize, right? Now we've deconstructed the religious thinking that is really rooted into this discussion, that religion is insignificant. Secondly, one life sacrificed is one life too many. And then we then maybe come to a macro standard of saying, okay, from a continental point of view, who do we then side with? It becomes obvious, colleagues. And I think maybe for me to be redundancy, for me to continuously be repeating myself, who do we side? Because we know that America has favorites. Because America is a Christian nation, one nation under God. God bless America. It's written in the dollar, you know. And so America will stand with Israel. But funny enough, we had a very controversial man who in America was a president, and he came with the Abrahamic Accords, and he put together the Islamic nations, the Christian nations, and the Jewish nations together. Most criticized president who did the most outrageous thing, walked into North Korea, had a conversation with Kim Jong-un, who he had insulted and called him Rocket Man 3 months ago, and went to do the impossible, right? You know, so, and it's an interesting take. And so what I was saying in my previous statement was we don't have to stand as South Africa with Nelson Mandela. He's not one of our most significant examples coming from this country, in my view. I would argue with Ezra or Nelson Mandela, him being a further more important example. I think what we need to create is a new narrative. And of course, as every generation comes up with what right, we always think we're bringing new ideas, but anyway, new as a result of what's old. And I think, you know, we need to really focus and ask ourselves, should Africa or the African Union have a side that it takes? When there is an obvious side that it should take. And it is the side of human beings, guys. And these voices of humanism, you know, these voices of humanism, they are not political. I cannot throw you with political jargon into this conversation and act like I'm a politician. I am not a politician, you know. However, I think there is something that is continuously overlooked in the conversation because we want to prove that we can speak English. Guys, English is not a measure of intelligence. Actually, English is, you know, other people's language, you know. I think the most important thing, colleagues, is, you know, human beings are dying, irrespective of they're Muslims or they're Christians or they're Jews. And so it should be a shame that the African Union can take a stance. And not a shame because Muslims are in Palestine and, you know, the Islam community is growing in Africa, but less than Christians, you know, which are always siding with Jews. But mostly it should be a shame because to take a side against human beings' lives that are sacrificed for no reason, but corporate interests and religious propaganda. It should be something we're ashamed about. We should be here trying to ask ourselves, if the two-state solution does not work for Israel, what solution can work for us to be able to promote tolerance? What does tolerance look like? And I feel, you know, the pain of my brother. You know, you could already feel from the context he speaks by that Palestine is suffering more. And, you know, the intonation that says Palestine is suffering more because Israel has more weapons, it again suggests that the 5 children that die in Israel are suffering less. Of which what we have just done now, we've put on a scale suffering. Which suffering outweighs the other? So all of a sudden, the scale will forever pendulum, my brothers. There will never be consistency where we can strike peace. And so my brother comes from a position out of his conviction of, you know, I'm assuming maybe, you know, he's a humanist. Maybe he's a Muslim, you know, and he believes, you know, in the Quran, you know, written, you know, by God, given to, you know, a Prophet Muhammad Salah, you know, blessed be his soul. But also my brother Ezra speaks being a Christian convicted. And so most of the time we try to avoid this position because it's non-political, but at the background of our minds, secularism doesn't work, guys. Secularism does not work. We are having biases. We are influenced by our convictions, and we must confront our convictions and deal with the humanist issue at hand, that whether people are Muslims or they are Jews, they are now suffering, and the suffering must end. There is no suffering, and I want to submit, guys, there is no suffering more than the other person. One life destroyed is one life too many. And I think maybe the conversation as well mustn't try to fit into popular narrative where we want to talk like we're Canadian politicians or, you know, Canadian bloggers. We don't give a damn. I nearly gave a cuss word, forgive me. We don't give a damn what Canada is talking about, guys. You know, what we are interested about is what is our role into peace building. How can we create value that says we need peace? And we need to ask ourselves from the end, while we are beginning here, how does peace look like? Does peace look like Muslims and Jews coming together and hugging each other? And I like something our brother here said earlier. He said, you know, it doesn't matter whether they are Christian, Jews, or Muslims. You know, particularly these three religions, if they treat black people like shit, they mean nothing to us. And the honest truth is Christianity, Islam, and even in Islam, not only Christianity is the father of racism in my books, you know, but also, you know, the black Muslims are not treated equally to the Arab Muslims. You don't know the difference between the Arab and, between the Arab and the Muslim. So for you to be a Muslim, you must be an Arab. The same way when you had to be a Christian, you must be an English, you know, you must be a British, you know, so you had to be a Brit, right? So I would say, you know, we must emphasize and try to build solutions of saying, what solutions would the African Union take? How could we condemn the stance that the African Union takes with Palestine? Because the stance that the African Union took was because of the oppressive regime that came in times past, you know, with Israeli funded, you know, dollars into Africa. Colonialism came together, you know, with Jewishness, because some of these guys here in South Africa, the Afrikaners, the Afrikaners said they were the people, they were the chosen people of God, and us South Africans, me and Ezra, we're the Canaanites. And so South Africa was, you know, the chosen land of God, you know, and so that superiority and that kind of mentality came with its Jewishness. And so now, how do we then, you know, reconstruct a new way of a new framework? I would suggest these are my solutions. One, we must condemn that the African Union takes any stance that is not, you know, that is religious or, you know, geopolitical in the sense that it stands with Israel or with Palestine. It must stand with human beings. We want to create a more human, you know, centered society. I would start a petition that says, you know, standing with human beings. We must denuclearize Israel. We must denuclearize. I mean, South Africa is not the best of countries. But after 1994, to prove that black people will not eat white people alive, we denuclearized. But South Africa was one of the world's biggest, you know, weapon manufacturers, you know. And so all of a sudden, for peace sake, we denuclearize. The first thing, let's denuclearize, guys. Let's denuclearize the Middle East. We cannot have two people who are fighting, and while they are fighting, they have weapons. You know, so the United Nations, that is now the collective bodies, not those nations as a Niger, you know, our brother differentiated. That body should agree that that community, that particular area should denuclearize for the sake of world peace, for the sake of, you know, all of a sudden with two kids who are fighting, we give one a knife, we give the other one a sword, you know, and then we say we expect peace there. You know, there will never be peace. And so we know that this is making money, you know, and so that would be where I'm landing my plane, guys. You know, I'll be landing my plane with criticism, a little bit of opinion in terms of what I think the way forward should look like.
Yeah, I appreciate Gamma for your insight. I want to ask you guys this as well. Anyone can go with this first. Do you think there's any connection with what is happening right now, not only there, but all over the world? Like, you can take an example of, you know, Russia and Ukraine, Israel and Palestine right now. You can take an example of what has been happening in Haiti, that now Africa, through Kenya, they're actually going to send troops there, you know, in that region. And also even what happened in the continent as well. Do you think there's any connection? And ever since, you know, when we started with the, you know, the pandemic, and then we came with Russia, and now we have this, and it's kind of like everywhere, people, this is the matter we're talking about, everybody's being forced, you know, to take side, right? And now through Africa, you see, you know, the president of Kenya doing that, and I'm trying to reach out to the government of Kenya to have a conversation with them about this as well. Yeah. Hopefully very soon I'll have a conversation to know their stand as well. But yeah. So do you guys think there's any connection with all these things that are happening, kind of like across the world right now? Do you see any connection? And if you see, what is that connection?
So for me, I believe this is the beginning of World War III, in my opinion, because you're asking about what I think. And the reason I say this, if you go back in history and look at how World War II started, or even World War One, but let's focus on World War II. It started as regional wars. It didn't just go to a full-blown world war. Regional first, and then it went to world war. So now we have Ukraine, Russia going on. And now if this one also escalates, then it becomes another war. And it's dividing, it's placing different countries on different sides. So US is going to side with Israel, whereas Russia and China are going to say, let's make peace, because they're not going to side with Palestine. They're going to say, let's make peace in Palestine and Israel. This should stop, and let's make it fair for everybody. That's what Russia and China are going to say. So if this escalates, then you're talking about potential use of, fear of use of nuclear weapons if Iran decides to join the party, right? And then Israel has its own nuclear weapons, and then the US is already sending equipment and carriers over there to Israel as we speak. So this is, in my opinion, the beginning, not just this one, but beginning with Russia and Ukraine, the beginning, and NATO, what NATO is doing is the beginning of World War III, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate that, Niger. Nick, what do you think? And guys, you can still drop the comment section and your opinion right there. We'll get some time to read about this discussion as well.
Yeah, I mean, this could be one of the aspects of World War III, but in terms of the whole situation, I think I kind of summed it up earlier, because I guess I'll say it in a different way. Yeah, it doesn't have to do with Africa directly, just like many issues don't have to do with Africa directly. But what comes up is that Africa typically gets dragged into situations. And like I said, we cannot avoid the area on the map. It is in a middle ground, just like India affects the rest of Asia drastically. So wherever India goes, you kind of get a tip of power that goes in that direction. If India decides to turn its back on China, China will lose a lot of power. This is why the US keeps trying to court them so hard. So it's not like India is insignificant, even though on one hand, they don't have as much of a big impact on economy, manufacturing, or anything else. But wherever they go, because of that middle central area over there, and I forget what the term is called. There is a term for like cradle of something or whatnot. But because of where it is, this is a very strategic point on the map. It is unavoidable. So no matter whoever owns the canal, no matter what happens in that situation, there's typically spillover. And especially if this is being approached from a, quote, religious standpoint, then tensions can pick up. Even though there's been racial standpoints for the longest over there because of the religious one. Some people align themselves to religion before anything to do with race, even if that same people with that religion will treat them like trash. They'll overlook it because this is my religion and I got to stand for it. So they'll do one of those things. So if that's the case, there's bound to be some spillover. And I don't know if this would be like the thing that say this is World War III, though. Because if anything, that started with Russia, Ukraine back in 2014. Like that started over there. If anything's like that, Russia's already said we've already started World War III. They've already said, look, this is the beginning of it right here, because they're just dogpiling them. What else can you call that when you got the whole of Europe plus NATO or whatever piling on Russia, and then other conflicts are happening? I just think that part of this is also a distraction. And you know what? This is one of the points I wanted to make here. How about this? And I asked this to everybody, including the comment section. While there may be some concern from us about what's happening in Israel, has there been concern from Israel about what's been happening in Africa? Has there been those, what some would call leaders, I would call politicians, have they been responding to come to the aid of nations in Africa? Because before we jump over hoops and say, well, you know, people are suffering over there and people are doing that, when's the last time many of these nations have turned around and said, you know what? People are suffering in Africa. Africans are suffering in Europe. Africans are suffering in China. Africans are suffering in the US. Africans are suffering here. Let's take a stand with them and back them up. Not just words, not just kind of like what India does every once in a while. You know, the Black Lives Matter thing in the US, and they'll take digs at each other. That's what they do, so they can one up and say, oh, you say we're doing something bad? Well, look at how you're doing your people over there. They don't really mean it. They're just using it as an undertone. Has Israel had a position of backing up the struggles of African liberation, Black liberation, just worldwide in general? Now, has the Palestinians had that same thing, had that same energy, even with what they're doing? Because people that are suffering, turns out people that are suffering still kind of take stands for other people. I mean, that's where we get panel discussions. That's where we're having this discussion right here. The whole of Africa is really suffering, and we're still having a conversation about Israel. Have they had that conversation about us? If not, I treat people how they treat me. I'm not going to kick you while you're down, but I'm not about to pick you up. That's not what's going to happen. You are suffering over there. That sucks, bro. That sucks. It really does. But if you have not been my ally, if you haven't been my friend, what do I need to turn around and then help you for? Like it really sucks that that's going on. Now, to my knowledge, from my limited information on this, the Palestinians have been allies, more or less, of Africans. That's what I have known. That's why I said, from a historical standpoint, I think that many African nations will default to supporting Palestine. Now, that's where I also get informed with that, because as I was refreshing myself on this whole thing, I was like, oh, yeah, I do know more than I thought I did. So the Palestinians in general, more often than they haven't, because it hasn't been 100% of the time, they have been siding with African nations in just the liberation struggle. So from there, that's where I will inform my decision and what that has to do with Africa. If you don't got anything to do with us, I ain't got anything to do with you. Tough, hold your own nuts. That's the phrase we use over here. So that's what I will have for them if we do some more deep diving, and that's what they've given us.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Mika. You know, my brother is now falling straight to what I was saying when I was, you know, calling it nonsensical for us to say it will affect us. This was not me being naive, you know, to, you know, the rise of petrol and oil, if that region, blah, 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 all the political talk, right? No. This was me trying to deconstruct the big brother mentality. You know, we are still, as Africans, as a continent of 1 billion people plus, suffering from a big brother mentality, saying if these guys suffer, we will suffer. And, you know, funny enough, before he said that, I'd already copied and pasted, you know, on our chat, you know, the following, right? These are the active wars or active conflicts since 2019 and today in Africa. And so what really, you know, positively triggered me was when he said that these guys, you know, sitting down and discussing us in a positive light. Guys, if you even look at the media of how some of these countries, how they project us, you know, guys like me have to start media companies to actually promote the positive picture of Africa, how they still, You know, they run the NGOs in Africa, and they still, you know, go to the poor villages to discuss the issues in Africa, you know, so that they can raise funds. The owners of the NGOs, Dambisa Moyo is anti-NGO in Africa, as I am, right? Because the owners of these NGOs, they are in Israel, they're in America, they're in UK, they're in the Netherlands, they're everywhere in Europe, and they come in, take the poor pictures, and then they go raise funds there out of our sympathy, right? But if we look at the conflicts in Africa, recently we just had 4 coups or 3 coups in Africa, Burkina Faso, you know, since 2019, just on our private chat, these are the conflicts that have happened from Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Democratic Republic of Congo, which is still in an upheaval today, guys. You understand? Ethiopia, Kenya, Mali. We ought to take an aggressive stance that deconstructs the big brother mentality. And we say it does not matter what they have. Even if tomorrow they close their borders, we don't care. You know, and then all of a sudden, we know that the 15 million people that are affected in these 2 countries, which already the UN has taken a 2-state solution. If they decide to leave that area, guys, they're going to go to Germany, they're going to go to America, they're going to go to other Arab areas. And because how they see us as well, they see us as poor nobodies. So for me, I immediately, you know, identify, you know, this conflict as a nonsense conflict, because I know there's no one sitting down thinking, the conflict that is happening in Burkina Faso, the conflict, we are the ones who are concerned because we are worried about our big brothers. You know, and the last thing that I'd like to also, you know, put into this position, we must also maybe factor and say none of Africa's military bases are in these countries. In actual fact, the United States has a military base in the USA and has many military bases in Africa, you know. And so because these countries have military power, you know, they are the ones, you know, that seem to be very important to the media. And I think we should stand with this other side, you know, the black conscious side, you know, whether you are, you know, mixed race African, you know, as long as you are a darker skin tone, you know, you must stand on this other side where you say, you know what, guys, this is really affecting us in a stupendous way. You know, this is also affecting us domestically in our country. And people ask, what are you talking about? Are you talking about the Israel-Palestine? You say, no. The issue in Burkina Faso, the issue in Burundi, you say the issue in the Democratic Republic. And I think once the conversation starts going there from ourselves, we then start looking inside rather than looking outside. And so what I was trying to say a little bit earlier, my brother, was that, you know, we have a big brother mentality and we are so much concerned about our external issues. It does not mean we must be naive. We know that the rest of the world, China, Russia, we know that China is currently, you know, bringing in dollars, cash into Africa, taking over, you know, Africa. We are not naive of those things, that there's a new colonization that's coming, you know. And to your point of, you know, Africa historically has stood, you know, with Palestine. And I want to say, you know, the median today of Africa is the youngest population in the world. The median is 19 to 26. We are the biggest human resource in the world, and we are growing aggressively. And sad enough, right? Africans today, if they are to stand with any other thing, you know, Africa is about 750 million Christians. Christianity, as much as people think it is not dwindling in Africa. We have the biggest mega churches. You know, Mika himself attends one of the biggest mega churches in Tanzania. So young Africans are going to again fall into the trap of religious conviction, of standing with a Judeo-Christian position. And so I want us to really shy away from saying, you know, in the past, because of Nelson Mandela, and I say this as a South African who is an ardent critic, I cannot stand with Palestine because of Nelson Mandela. You know, the man is gone now, you know, and so we must must create progressive thinking of owning our own narrative. And I don't know, from an African-American point of view, how this, affects you guys. And I know that as an African-American, your root is in Africa and your heart is in Africa. But I think as a South African, I need to be very, very open that we must create progressive thinking of saying, in the past, because of colonialism and all of those things, people were standing, and the chances that young people will stand with Palestine are so small because people are Christians and they're going to have to stand with their faith, and so it becomes a very tedious conflict. And going back to the first thing that I said, that these are convictions that we're dealing with. As much as secularism tries to deceive us to think it will not matter, at the end of the day, you ask Mika in his archive, because Mika is going to close this channel one day. He's going to go back on his knees and he's thinking about, the second coming. He's thinking about, eschatology. That is the theology of the last days. And Mika is thinking, I'm working for my soul here. And so Mika is kneeling down with his Bible in a corner and saying, God bless Israel. And in his mind, when he says, God bless Israel, he does not mean the strip of land. He means the Jews. Do you see what I mean? And so there's a lot of conditioned thinking that is beyond 300 years. Before the normative source. And so religion is political in its nature. You may try to dodge it. You may try to avoid it. You may try to, what you call innuendo around it. It is playing a crucial role into the decisions we make, into, the stances we take. And until we deconstruct religious thinking that is political by nature, and then we focus on Isintu, that is humanism, African humanism, which is a new, which is an old political way of thinking of things, and saying, what is our interest? Delete religious thinking, deconstruct religious thinking, and then delete the big brother mentality. Although we know we will need America, we will need some of these things, but we have to be willing to sacrifice and suffer. Funny enough, this is called the Jewish effect. The first Jews that moved to America, they were willing to set up a foundation with their own blood. And so we have to be that generation that say, then we are going to ignore. It's going to be stupid, but we will. How can we create interest among ourselves? And I think also maybe this is a challenge that also the African-American community has to take. Will they sacrifice and leave America and come build the shambles of Africa with us and start from nowhere with nothing? And so it's an interesting case. I'm just, Ezra here, I'm taking chances, and challenging the thinking here, you forgive me.
All right. That last portion.
I what? Eh?
You might not respond to the last thing he just said.
Who? Me or who? Ezra?
Got him.
I want to say this before that. So we have our other brother here because I need to address first to him. And then I'm going to ask the final question that will get as well from everybody, including Tunija. So we have our brother Tunija came here. Tunija, let me address to you, man. I don't like what you comment in the comment section. Because Tunija, I've asked you multiple times to give me your contacts, to give me your email, to give me your number. And specifically, I ask you that for things like this, because there are sessions that I'm not going to comment the StreamYard link in the comment section like this one. Today, I had to reach out to these guys prior to this discussion to send this email and to ask them if they will join into this conversation, because I wanted to have this conversation with people that I already know, at least somehow. I can't risk with this kind of topic. It's very sensitive. Just share the link in the comment section for everybody to join, even people that I don't know, right? So I'm being careful with that. There are sessions that I'll drop down in the comment section for everybody to join. But these guys, I've asked them like 30 minutes before the session because I had their numbers. So I just send the link and I asked them to come to join. So for you, the team, they were trying to ask you as well for the email, you to send email to us so that we may send this link through your email and not really through the comment section. Now I need to open here, and I know there are other people they want to come, but we did not bring them in because I did not know them. It's very important for this session. I want to have people that at least I know and we have had conversation before because it's a very sensitive issue and we need to at least come to a conclusion today. So I think what you're commenting in the comment section, it was not fair to Niger. You need to give me your contact so that when we have sessions like this in the future, I'll contact you direct so that you know that, okay, we're having this and you just join directly straight, maybe from your number or from your email, you join the session and it'll be amazing. But not like this, what you say here in the group. You don't have to pay really to be here or anything. And tonight, you're better than that, my brother. So I'll ask the final question, and I'll start with you, my brother Tunisia. And because right now I see we have like two different groups here in this session. We have people
hold
who.
on. Can I respond to what you just said?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Can you hear me?
Hold on. I think there's a bit of a echo on my end. Sorry. Yeah, it's regarding the link. If they had told me that it was exclusive, because I did ask whether the panel was exclusive, and nobody gave me an idea. Then they asked me to send an email link. I didn't understand what they were saying. Then I sent the email link, and the person that was commenting and telling me to do that wasn't you. And but I did anyway, and that's how I got here. So, but it was a bit of a confusion. If they had said, okay, this is exclusive, this is based on email, I will understand. You see what I mean? Nobody said anything. All I got was that I should go to the Patreon link and stuff like that. So I didn't understand what was going on.
No, because nobody actually knew that it was exclusive. That's why people like Marit, they were commenting and asking for me to drop the link. So during that time, I had to contact these people private to tell them that, hey, ask to Niger to send an email to our email, to oneafricaofficial@gmail.com, so that I may send the link to you through that email. So I guess for today, since we're here, okay, thank you. So right now, I think for the next session, we'll be able to share this link direct to you through your contact. So I appreciate for that. I think now it's clear, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I'll ask. All right, I appreciate, brother. I'll ask this final question, and I'll give you a chance, Tonija, to come since you just joined us right now. To know your thoughts. We kind of have like two different groups. Like, for example, our brother here, Gamma Cuba, he says that, you know what, this issue is not affecting us at all, Africa. And we have people in this section, even in the comment section, that believes that this is affecting Africa as well. But my question is this, that I agree, it's true. I think our conversation, it should be more of Africa, Pan-Africanism, and how can we kind of like break out from the situation that we have today. So how can Africa kind of like avoid this, how can I say, collateral damages? You see, like war is happening in Ukraine and Russia, and then we are the one that are suffering something, and we can't get out of that, and we're being forced to side with different countries. Now it's happening in Palestine and Israel, and we have here this conversation, and I don't know, maybe there'll be some consequence that will happen in Africa. So what can we do to avoid those situations, so that if we have a situation like this, okay, it doesn't matter, it's not happening with us, we can still move on, and whatever negative effect that is going to happen through that is not going to affect us like the way it does right now. What should we supposed to do?
If you're asking me, at first I never got the chance to say my greetings to the people on the panel. Thank you for having me, and greetings to everyone on the panel, especially the one that made all the effort to send me the email. And that's this is the link. Greetings to the chat and to the viewers. What we can do is, first of all, mind our business. And in terms of if I was any African leader, I would send my people to be monitoring the conflict and how they are fighting and studying what they are doing. Because sooner or later it will come to us again, depending on what they want to do. So you will study and learn from what they are doing, because as tragic as it is, what is going on there, at the moment, that conflict is one of the first evils I've seen on the face of the earth. As somebody that was growing up, you see these people fighting each other for no justifiable reason, no real justifiable reason. The war is just kept going. For what? Some people just say, oh, let me take a little bit more of your land. But if you want the land, so be it. Why don't you just make them part of Israel? You can't even do that. You see, the whole thing is just total, almost pure evil. Because I understand, the Israelis have an instinct to protect themselves. That's very, very important. Given what Africa has gone through, I understand their instinct, given what Hitler did to them. However, you've protected yourself, you've gotten power. Why are you still taking the land of the Palestinians, sending people to go and your people in there to take their land bit by bit, treating them like second-class citizens constantly, jailing them? That is not a country that is, trying to protect itself. It's a country that has got a lot of power and is abusing it. And that's what has led to the events that we've seen today. And it's a shame on the whole world, because the whole world enabled this to happen. Because they enable these Gazans to be in such a state that they don't even care. Because they know what Israel is going to do, but they don't care. They did it anyway, openly. As a matter of fact, they wanted to provoke Israel as much as they can. Like, do your worst. Let's see whether you finish all of us today. Do your worst. That's the approach. This is what the world has given us. This is why being responsible is a good thing in this life. Try to be act with some level of dignity and integrity. But that is not what has happened. The whole world pretended as if they didn't see the Palestinians being jailed. There are 2 million of them. They pretended as if in the West Bank, Israelis are not going there to build settlements constantly. They've taken so much land from the Palestinians that some people are saying the two-state solution is not even viable. That they may as well just just absorb them into Israel. But Israel doesn't want, the Israelis don't want to do that, because the Jews want Israel to be a majority Jewish state. You see why I consider this conflict an evil one? Why does it have to be a Jewish state? What is, okay, let's say it's Jewish. You have the power now to reshape it in your image, to make it solid, that state is going to be secular. Nobody is going to try to dominate the other. Set an example. But no, they didn't do that. Now they want to go and totally cause so much bloodshed in Gaza. I fear that one of the things what they want to do is try to expel the Palestinians from there, because they might kind of bliss that area so badly that they open the border in one direction, like towards Egypt, Jordan, or whatever they want to open it to, so that the Palestinians escape through that direction. In other words, cleansing the area of Palestinians. Because an Israeli lawmaker has said this before now, that the Palestinians have 3 options. They leave. They live as second-class citizens, accept their status within where they are, or they die. Those are their 3 options. And this is what may come to fruition, and the world is aiding them to do it. Just typical of the US. The US is always doing this sort of stuff because it's in their interest. People don't understand that what Israel is doing is in the interest of the US. The US doesn't want the Middle East to be united. They don't want that to happen. If anything, some people are even accusing that maybe the US knew what was happening about there's a kind of intelligence gap where they are supposed to have reported it, but they didn't say anything. Because they played as if, Israel was supposed to have a peace deal, a kind of a relationship with Saudi Arabia recently. They were looking to, have normalized relationship. But now all that is off. Because America doesn't want them to come together. America doesn't want that region to come together. That's the game they play. They play the same game with Russia and Ukraine and Europe, basically. Is the name of the game, because America is feeling lonely. They're all the way down in America, while the whole party is happening in Europe and Middle East and the Asia continent. So they have to make sure everybody is divided there to keep them in check. So that is the game that is going on, and I consider it evil, because I would have expected that Israeli people themselves would be like, what? Look at what our own forefathers went through. Look at what Hitler did to us. Why are we doing this to other people? Some of the people that went through the gas chamber are still alive today in Israel. As a matter of fact, one of them is part of the people that were kidnapped. They saw what Hitler did to them, and they allowed this to still happen within this region. So it's an evil thing in the context of back to the main question you asked about how it will affect us. Both sides have not been our friends. Palestinians or Israelis have not been our friends. Africans, we like to moralize. We like to say, oh yes, let's take the side of the Palestinian because we have an affinity with them because they are oppressed. But the same people with that religion are the ones ravaging Sudan right now with Arabization, this agenda. The same people, set of people. They are pushing the same agenda there. So we have to really, really search ourselves and think carefully about these things. It's not our fight in the first place. Yeah. It's one thing to say, okay, human beings are human beings. They are innocent people, really. There are a lot of innocent civilians out there. But in terms of the driving force, the political force of that group of people, they are not it's not in our interest. They are not in our interest at all. The stronger they get, as a matter of fact, that's one of the things I said the last time I came here. The stronger they get, the more danger it is for us in Africa here. Because we already have Europeans to worry about. If you start worrying about the Middle Eastern people, that's even bigger trouble. Because when they come, they destroy everything. You know, in Nigeria, you know, the Europeans came and colonized Nigeria, and the northern part of Nigeria was colonized by by the Fulanis with Islam. What they do is they completely uproot everything they see. They meet there. They removed all the chieftains, all the kings, all the traditional kings that they met in the north and replaced them with emirs and sultans. So basically, titles of the Middle East, they replaced them with that. But while in the south that was Christianized, they still left their titles there. Like you have the Oba of Benin, you have the Uni of Ife, you have Obis. So you have different titles, but you will not see that in the north. They remove everything. And when they remove everything first, then the next wave is Arabization, which is because North Africa has been Arabized already, and now they're coming down Sudan. And I don't subscribe to the idea that we should see these groups as our friends, but as decent human beings, we know what is happening to the Palestinians is not fair. We know what is happening to the Palestinians is needless evil that doesn't have to exist on the face of the earth. The kind of evil that is happening to us too. You know, I made my peace with it that when you are poor and you don't have power, you don't have ability to defend yourself, people treat you like trash. That's what happens in this world. I made my peace with that. So we have to know this and work. While they are doing this, they've just bought us time to an extent. We should be using it to fix ourselves. For me, we should be fixing ourselves every single day. And that's why it's good you're having this conversation, because this is how it starts. And I was having the conversation yesterday with fellow Nigerians too. So it's a very, very important stuff that we need to do. It's a tough thing because we are dealing with it's harder for us, because if you try to go after your leaders while all these wolves are surrounding us, Europeans are everywhere, the Chinese, everybody with their own interests, they could just come and sabotage it and put their own their even worse stooge there. So you have to do it in a delicate way. How do you disconnect these their puppets from power while this is transforming your nation? How do you do that? The only way we've seen that it's been done so far is with the Sahel nations that had a military conflict. So that is why that's how I see this thing. We have to. I'm quite frustrated that we have not made more progress. And on this, I'm quite frustrated, and I just hope we start making more progress in the coming years. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Niger.
I want to add a few things to what he said. We have to understand that, you know, he said that the Germans moved to Israel after Hitler. So to me, I don't believe those people, because when United Nations made that decision to make Israel the state of Israel, and then they started, you know, helping them financially and made them as powerful as they are today, and giving them weapons and technology, and now that one of the superpowers of the world, even though they're in the Middle East, you know, they haven't been able to be pushed out because of the kind of protection they have. So those people that moved into Israel from Germany after the Holocaust, are they truly Jews? Those white people that moved into Israel, and those people that are now in power in Israel, are they really Jews that were the historical Jews that we read about in the Bible? Because when the West created that vacuum and made that space, and then chose those people and told them to move to Israel because they were practicing Judaism in Germany, are they truly Jews? Are they the descendants of Abraham? Because imagine Tanzania as it is today, and a country from nowhere comes to Tanzania and say, all of you Tanzanians, we're going to push you to a corner, and we're going to bring in these foreigners into your country, and they're going to take over the country, and you have to do what we say. And if you don't do what we say, we're going to punish you. We're going to deal with you. We're going to oppress you. That is what is happening in Israel today. People, Jews and Arabs were living in Israel. Then the UN decided to give Jews majority of Israel, and then flew in people from a foreign land and told them to move into Israel and settle in Israel that we know today. Which is why you see a lot of white-looking people living in Israel today. So we have to understand the history of this. And also, we have to remember that there's a temple that they want to build in Jerusalem. But Jerusalem as it stands today is divided into two. One is to the Palestinians and the other half is to Jews. So, and I believe they wanted to start building that temple this year, if I'm not mistaken. So I asked myself, how did Israel, that have one of the best intelligence, allow these people to penetrate into Israel? How did that happen? You know? So if that happened, if they allowed it to happen, if they were blindsided, because I was reading today that Egypt, I don't know if it's real or fake news, because these days you can't tell, but I was reading today that Egypt warned Israel that this was going to happen last week, and they dismissed it. So were they blindsided, or did they want it to happen so they can have this conflict and they can push their own agenda? Because the prime minister of Israel and Biden weren't getting along like normally US presidents and Israel prime ministers would. But these conflicts have now brought them back together so they can forge together forward. You know, so I don't know if this is a psyop. This is now the conspiracy theories. I don't know if this is a psyop. I don't know if it's actually how it was supposed to happen or what happened, or they were, blindsided by this. But whichever which way that is going on, I want you all to know that this conflict did not start today. It's been going on for decades. And the white people that run Israel today are oppressing the Palestine. You can go back and read news and look for articles from that region, the local news from that region, and you'll see it. Whether it's Israel spitting on them, Jews in Israel spitting on the Palestine, or them bombing them for crossing the border, or whatever the reason might be. It's been going on. Not as bad as it is today, but it's been ongoing. They are oppressed people. And if you keep oppressing people for decades, one day they're going to push back. You know what I mean? They're going to push back. They're not going to let you keep pushing them, which is what we are facing today. So my hope is that this conflict doesn't go into another country like Iran, like I said previously, because if that does, then that's going to cause a turmoil in the Middle East, and it's going to destabilize the Middle East, and then we're going to have a big problem in Africa, which is what this topic is about.
Yeah. I appreciate that, gentlemen. There's a comment here. I think this is agreeing as well with what Gamma you said earlier, and I would like to hear from Israel what you'd like to say about the question I asked, what Africa should do. Pragmatic, mystic. Anasema, she or he says, first, there's nothing called Middle East. The so-called Middle East is British creating in 1947 to give room to European immigrants that converted to Judaism in 17th centuries. Israel is Northeast Africa. That's what pragmatic, mystic say. And, seeing from your reaction, Gamma Cuba, I think you're saying that he or she nailed it 100%. His Excellence, what would you have to contribute to the question that I asked? I would love to hear that from you, and then I can come to you, Gamma Cuba, then Nick, and then we'll see. Maybe we'll end there. But the same question I asked to Niger at the beginning, that so what should we do to avoid this kind of stuff and this kind of topics that we discuss here today? What should we do? To Niger told us we should focus on fixing ourselves. That should be our focus, fixing ourselves inside out. To see that. But I'd love to hear from His Excellence. I think His Excellence might be a little bit away. So Gamma Cuba, I can start with you, man, because you're the one you say that. His Excellence is back. The question is that, so right now we know that a lot of things that are happening outside of the continent that sometimes we don't even have a part to play. I mean, we don't even know why it's happening, but we end up being affected. So what can we do for us not to go through these consequences and be like collateral damage of what's happening out there? We are here, we innocent, we haven't done anything wrong to that, but we are going to face consequences. What can we do for us to stand strong and avoid those kind of issues? Ezra, I'd like to hear your insight on this one, and Gamma Cuba, and then me. And guys, remember as well to like, you can share this stream, and also you can drop your comments about that, and I'll get some time to read after this. And I appreciate for the super chats and for those members who are joining. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys.
Looking at us as Africa now, I think since we've been dragged in so many conflicts, in so many wars, and sometimes when people say World War III, I wonder whose resources are they talking about? Will they just recruit men from this African countries and other countries that are who do not have the ships and all this sophisticated weapons to join them in their fight? Or is it going to be like the big boys club fighting and calling it World War III, and then just proxies then around other countries who say it's World War, and I've got these buddies of mine, we are NATO, we are this, we are that. I think sometimes the term World War III, even then, it's still, it doesn't make sense to me when people say World War III. I know it's more proxies and stuff, and also recruiting other nations, people from other nations who come and fight with you and stuff. But I think as Africa are looking at us, we have a lot that we still need to fix. We are still struggling to even resolve our issues, our conflicts within our borders. I mean, we have a lot of countries that even Gamma talked about that have had coups and stuff. We're struggling to even help our brothers in our same continent, our neighbors, resolve their issues. Like us going into other nations outside of our continent, trying to resolve those issues will not really benefit us, while we still struggle to resolve our own problems domestically and even continentally. So going forward, I think we should really engage more as Africans, learn more about each other's countries. And like, if you look at, most of us are so enclosed into our countries. I mean, I'm sure the people that are going through, like, let's say, for example, in Chad, Mali, and those countries, how many of us are really so concerned about those countries? Or is it, as long as I've got bread on my table, yeah, I've heard about the news, next, or what are we really saying about Africa? What are we really saying about coming up with solutions? Because it seems like most of us, we are still not coming up with solutions for Africa. I think it's just something that's been, for the most part, people are not really concerned. Let's just be honest, are not really concerned about the day-to-day struggle of Africans in general, not just your own issues that you have to face with, And a lot of people in Africa, as much as we talk about this youth, that we are this young generation, we have a lot of youth that is not really participating in the matters that are going to affect them 20 years, 30 years, 40 years to come. Because they'll be the leaders who will need to take care of the country. There will be the new caretakers. There will be the new leaders. And it seems like this new generation that we're talking about is not yet ready to be active, to participate. It seems like they've lost interest. Most of them, they're like, the old people they're the ones who control the finances, they control the political direction and stuff. Instead of them participating and really being informed, and so that decision can be made that is going to affect them, to help them take over the nations. So I think as for us as the youth of Africa, to teach one another, get more information about what needs to be done. I mean, we do know, but we don't really have a roadmap in terms of. We know that we have unemployment. We know that our education system are not right. We know that we have we don't have good infrastructure. We know all these things. We know all of these things. Those things don't even need anybody to be told. You just see them on your day to day around you. So I think until we really push us as a youth to really talk about the matters that are going to affect us, and what are we leaving, how are we going to leave as a legacy for the generation that's going to come. And I think Gamma or Neta, they also spoke about how do I put this, it's like we are not really active, man. A lot of people are not active except for entertainment. If you look at in Africa or worldwide now, most of the things, if you come bring music, bring whatever, a lot of youth will go there. If now we're bringing a big artist here, I'm telling you, probably we'll be having 100,000 people tuning in, 50,000 tuning in and stuff. Entertainment seems to have taken over so much than the things that really build nations. And I think that the arts are not good, and the arts are very good because they can bring people together. But how can we bring people together to build a nation? It's something that we should be focusing on. And through all this music, we need to penetrate where the youth are, instead of just letting the youth entertain themselves. And then the youth just says, hey, man, we'll just see. We are vibing, it's all they think of. But how can we bring the youth in such a way that whatever is of interest, we can still penetrate those places and talk to them? And also tell them that this is your countries. I mean, we cannot talk about leaders who are 70, 80 years old to take us somewhere. Yes, they can give us direction and just bring stability, but we need to know that we are the ones that need to build the nation going forward. And I think if we are saying we are a young, youthful continent, that's where we need to start in terms of empowering the youth to speak, empowering the youth to work. The culture of work will never run away. And if our youth think it's all about the shortcuts of being successful through entertainment or through not bashing Forex, for those who are doing Forex is a good thing if you know what you're doing. But there's many ways to build a nation, and it's not just built by those platforms only. There's a lot that we still need to be done. We still need to industrialize. We still need to build roads. We need all those things. And when they're getting those money, it's not about buying cars and being in clubs, but it's about building the nation and building businesses and building other platforms to empower Africa. We're looking at Africa internally now, not taking sides, not saying, oh, this one is funding me, or this one is giving me aid for my budget and stuff. It's about us as African youth to know that these nations, the debts that are being taken now by the old people, we're going to have to pay for it 40 years down the line, 50 years down the line. So we need to know all these things. And if we don't empower ourselves through knowledge and how countries are run and how other countries have become successful, we will still be singing the same song. We will still be blaming America for robbing our forefathers. We'll still be blaming other nations for coming and exploiting us and all those things. Until we take charge of our countries and saying, let's look at our own interests first. If the Chinese want to come here, fine, come and do business, but we also want to learn. We also want to participate in those businesses. And that's the only way up. Looking at just one aspect. I know the other guys have other points.
Yeah, someone here, Michael Omondi, is actually agreeing with you. He's saying that one of the things you never hear from African intellectuals is building up African defenses. We need to educate a generation of engineers that can develop not only infrastructure, but manufacturing capabilities. The only difference between Germany and China and America, those countries have a monopoly on technological know-how. They know how to build things. And then he continues to say that we need a generation of African engineers, something that will quite literally take an entire generation to establish 10 to 15 years, where we can build our own software, build our own heavy machinery, build our own idea of next generation cities. The only difference between us and China is the gap in knowledge transfer. I love that. I think he has a really good point, Michael Omondi.
I wanted to add something about, if you look at what Hamas was able to do and the spirit behind how they were able to do it, it goes back to the point I made earlier on, that the reason why the continent is not doing very well is because of factors that we are not necessarily directly in control of. In other words, we don't have much that is happening to us directly that is at a level that enables us to set our differences aside, come together and build a strong continent or a strong nations even. The only time we have problems is when we fight each other. You hardly see the Europeans or Arabs come and invade our countries, and we engage in a first world conflict that wakes us up to the realities of the world. And because I said this about China too, China was invaded by Japan, and Japan was nuked twice. South Korea, North Korea was completely destroyed in the 50s or so, and look at where they are today. Lee Kuan Yew was due to be executed of Singapore by Japanese soldiers during the time when they were invading the Asian countries. And he went on to build a very, very powerful nation now. This is South Korea. So you see, nations, the leaders are forged. They tend to be forged. And if you look at the African continent now, the ones that seem to be exerting their independence more, like Algeria, South Africa, Zimbabwe, they actually fought the Europeans. They actually fought them. But while Nigerians are basically Anglophiles, or they call them like people that love Europeans, and the Ghanaians, similar stuff, not to mention the Francophone countries, because of the way the Europeans left them, they didn't fight for their freedom. They didn't have any galvanizing factor to put all of them together, forge them. If you hear the story of what the Japanese Communist Party did, some of their heroic deed that they did to forge the nation they had today, they said they were behind. They didn't have as much weapons compared to because they were fighting a civil war after the Japanese invaded. America was funding the other side. And they didn't have that much weapon, but because of the drive that they had, they believed in what they were doing. They went after the other group, defeated them, and they went to Taiwan. Those are the groups now that are in Taiwan. And then since then, the Communist Party went on to build one of the most successful turnaround of any nation. In short, I think it's just about the most successful turnaround. Maybe Hitler could compete with that, but Hitler ended up in a total disaster. Because Hitler turned his country around within a few decades too. But what the Chinese did was remarkable, because they were agrarian society. They were just doing agriculture but after the end of the war. But by 1965, they were a nuclear power. And since then, 1970, the next Nixon went there, had a deal with them to pull them away from the Soviet Union. They never looked back since then. They've brought millions out of poverty. If you know the gap between China and India today, it's not even funny. China and India, there was a time their GDP was the same. China just went ahead to start manufacturing while India was there doing software. Now, China is manufacturing 30% of the goods in the world, while India is just about 3%. And they said even if India doubles its manufacturing capacity, it's going to take just 10% from China's capacity. In terms of, they're going to steal 10% of China's manufacturing that China is doing today. So the gap between China and India right now, people, if they understand it, they are not going to find them like similar countries at all. And that is based on a system that is not even democratic. That is really remarkable stuff. And this is this thing that Western nations try to cover up. They make it look like China is a despotic country and all the rest of it. The other day, I saw a video of in China, you will see houses in the middle of the road. Like they show a picture of a few houses in the middle of the road. They said They were trying to explain why that is happening. It's because the people that own those houses refuse to sell to the government or give it to the government. But I'm like, but China is a dictatorship. How is that possible? There you go. That's a mystery. But in the West, you will not see that. The China is supposed to be the dictatorship, but yet you see houses in the middle of the road, and they will build bridges around the house to avoid, because the owner refused to sell. So it tells you that we are not everything that the West tells us is the truth. We just have to start. I feel like we need something to wake us up. We don't, and the West, they are very clever. They are really very clever with us. Whenever they want to deal with us, they use coups. You know how some people like to, in movies, you see some people, they like to shoot people to kill them. While other people just like to use dart poison, or some of them use sleeping this thing to just put over somebody's nose and the person sleeps. That's the type they use on us. The type that makes us sleep. Not the type that wakes us up and also we fight back. Because look at what happened in Niger. You see how America responded? America was tiptoeing around it. But look at Israel. They were sending warships straight. They were tiptoeing around it because they don't want to wake us up. They know if they attack us, they are going to wake about 1.3 billion people around the world up. They don't do that. And our people, God knows what it's going to take to wake us up. And that is my problem. And this is why it's very, very hard to convince people to just go security. Except you are lucky. You have a good leader that just cares about security for whatever reason and just did it. Otherwise, the people, for them to catch up, it's just so hard. Because you need the people that have seen what it's like not to have it. When your people get decimated, your women, you see your children lying without life in them, you wake up to the realities of the world. And not only you, everybody around you will be in the same page. And when a leader comes up and says, we need to build this, everybody will set their differences aside and go and do it. Funny enough, I used to use that term on the day when Israel was attacked on CNN. I was watching it. It was very, very interesting that they used this the same time. They said the Israelis now are setting their differences aside and united to command. This is exactly what happens. Events often force people together. Israelis were split. They were fighting this law that Netanyahu wanted to pass. I think he wants to give the parliament too much power over this judiciary. So, but now all that is out of the water because Hamas attacked. They are now going to unite and go and do business. That is what Africa doesn't have. That is what many African nations have not seen. That's the ingredient. We don't have it.
I agree with you on that one. When you said that what happened to Nigeria is they didn't fight for their freedom. I mean, when you look at a lot of African nations, how actually I disagree with that partially because they did, but not to the extent that you were talking about. No, if you don't have a whole culture of people fighting and passing it on, because that's genetic too, or people that were like the heroes, the war heroes that passed it on to their children, then you're going to have people that were, one, cowards, number two, other people that were just regular people, and regular people just follow whatever the other people do. The masses of people are always going to be the masses. And what's going to take to turn this situation around is 3%. That's all you need. It has been proven in history. It takes 3% of a population, and an idea is impossible to bury. 3% of a population, then it starts to spread, and you can change you could bring a nation to its knees with 3% of a population. If you got 10%, it's almost overkill. That's where you see in the United States with black people, they got over 10% and they keep trying to drown out the numbers. You can bring a nation to its knees when you have a sizable number. You don't need to be the majority. They proved that in South Africa. What is South Africa? What is it? 3-4% non-African population, and they control the entire nation. It's not just the money. It's not just the mindset. It's literally, if you got those people and they're all in lockstep, you will control everybody else around you. And I think that's where, to bring this back to Israel for a second, how this is going to affect everybody else. And I'm glad, Mikey, that you brought this up, because if because I was hesitant to come on, as you know. And I think now that I can see a reason why you were choosing to have this conversation, because I can make a connecting point here. If we have refused to talk about even other issues as they relate to Africa, whether we have extreme knowledge on it or not, and we don't formulate our opinions and bring them back, because this is what every other group does. If something happens to them, they always put a bias on their spin to it. If something happens, and I watch a lot of Indian news. If something happens over there, they put a spin and say, well, this thing happened. They take jabs at China every single time they get, it has nothing to do with them, and they take a jab at China. Absolutely nothing. It's like, it's the farthest off thing you can make a connection, but that is what they do. They make sure that they are in a steady drumbeat to say, if we are against this person, we are against them. If we're with them, we're with them. This is where we stand right here. And if you don't draw a line in the sand, and we keep tiptoeing and say, basically the kumbaya talk, if we say everybody's our friend, because Africans have historically said other people are our friends, and that can be shaped from our background and the unlimited resources, the climate, and everything like that. People will take advantage of that. That's the thing. When you come in, and some of it was ego, some people wearing gold, going to other nations. I'm thinking of certain leaders in history where they're coming in and they want to show off. Okay, great. Every single group of people got that. The problem is when you combine that with, hey, we're kind of trusting, and hey, let's just teach them everything we know, because there's no way these simple-minded folks, China learned that because they thought they were better than everybody else, and they got ramsacked for 100 years. They literally had the teachings. We are above them. These are lowly creatures. That was in their teaching. And what happened to them? They got destroyed. We had certain African nations and leaders with that same mindset. So what we got to do, I'm going to talk on these points because I took some points here. Urza, you said, how do we get the youth to be active and get involved? Well, it goes back to the one thing that I do, and I learned this from a guy. His name is Jason Black. He has a channel called The Business. I suggest everybody here still watches it. So what we do is you reach people where they're at. You know, a lot of people, they're impoverished. Okay, so you start showing them money. But you got to have yourself together, because if you don't have yourself together and you talk about money, you show them the money, and you can't say, this is what you do, A, B, C, X, Y, Z, then they're going to say, shut the F up. I'm moving on because this is bored. But if you got it with like that, then they will listen to you, because what they're tired of is a bunch of these old folks. And I have absolutely no respect for anybody that's above the age of 60 and above. I have absolutely none. You got to prove it to me why I should listen to you. Every single race, every single group throughout the entire planet. I don't care where you at. You 60 and above, absolutely, automatically no respect. You destroyed the planet through this carbon stuff. You destroyed the planet because you had a better economy, cheaper resources. You didn't have all of this stuff. And what most of you do, you fumbled the ball. You left people impoverished. Then you got your kids, and you got the gall to say, well, we weren't like that back then. Of course you weren't. You were busy partying. You were busy, if we bring it back to just the African perspective, you were busy saying, I am too scared to stand up so that my children, and this is the point, grandchildren, because that's what we are now, will have a life. We have to now make the sacrifice, which is bigger than what they would have made at the time. And then the fruits of the real fruits of the labor will be our grandkids, or the equivalent to our grandkids for the ones that don't have it. We got to make a bigger sacrifice than they did. They had to eat a little crap. We got to eat bucket loads of it in order to turn this around. It's going to hurt for a long, long time. And when I tell people that directly like that, so many people, they scatter like mice. They are afraid to do that. But if you come into another aspect, let me finish this one point. But if you come into another aspect and then you needle it in and say, you know what? I can show you how you can improve your life in this aspect. Oh, and by the way, while you're improving your life, teach another one. Each one teach one. Not all of those people are going to improve, but you're going to reach them. And I showed them some booty shake. I showed them twerking. If you see my WhatsApp, if you're on my WhatsApp, I show flat ass, everything. I show all of that. This is what some of the people want, and it reaches them. These people actually build some businesses, some of them that I can point to in Nigeria, that I can point to in Kenya and Tanzania. I can point to some of these businesses and say, hey, you want to buy some wigs? go to this person. Here, you want to do some farmland. We got some people that's trying to do a farm network in Nigeria. That is extremely hard to do, by the way. That is very hard because so many disagreements, but that is slowly but surely happening. And other stuff I won't say online because it's supposed to be done behind the scenes. But if you reach them where they're at, if you said, Ezra, you said, how do we get them because they're bored? Well, okay, if they like twerk videos, why don't you show them some of that while at the same time as them bringing them in and talking how to make a connection? Oh, you like these people, these women shaking their ass? Okay, this is how you can get some women around you that are shaking their ass. I'm not here to judge them. That's what other people are there for. I'm glad that's what they're going to do. I'm going to do my part and help them get better economically. Because once they get there, they're less likely to sell out each other. They're less likely to serve another power. Some of those people aren't going to be the people that are going to rah-rah like what some of us are doing here. I'm that rah-rah person. I will fight literally to the death of it to defend what I will stand. I will die on my feet. But I realize everybody's not like me. So I'm going to reach as many people as I can, because the primary thing is if we get people economically better, that's what we need. We could depend on ourselves. And then last point, China is a democracy. We got to drop this notion of adopting everything that the West, that white people tell us. I'm going to call it like that. I'll do it if other people won't. What white people tell us, because they live by this rule called I'm white and I say so. If the sky is blue one day to their advantage, they will say the sky is blue. But the next day they'll be like, no, it's orange. And we're seeing it's blue, but they'll say it's orange. Democracy, by definition, is the power of the people. It doesn't mean anything to do with an election. You can have a democracy with a dictatorship. Dictatorship is a governing rule, but democracy is the system in which it works under. China is actually the closest to a democracy that we have, and then a couple other nations like that. And the traditional African way it was ruling was closer to a democracy before we all adopted the European servitude mindset, because they did it on their own people, and all they did was bring it to us, and now we're doing it to each other. This whole so-called democracy, how is that working when the people are broke as hell? They're stealing from each other, robbing from each other. Now that's being enabled by outside forces, of course, when we can't even establish a way to help each other out. But China was allowed to do that. Japan was allowed. Every time you say that, I'm going to give the context. Context is important. If you don't include that China, Japan, and those Asians were allowed to rebuild after they got ransacked, where Africa has been interfered with, then we're telling a half truth. Because then we could point and say, why did China do it and develop an inferiority complex? Because that's what some people will do. China did it in this many years. Guess what? China was also not interfered with. When the USA lost doing it, they had an ally in Russia. Russia is right next to China. So they couldn't really do anything to China. I mean, they're literally connected. So when they tried to do it with Ronald Reagan and Nixon and whatever, and say, hey, we want this power to be there. And then Africa with Tanzania, South Africa, and other ones said, no, we're going to vote at the UN to say, no, we don't want this capitalist one. We want the pro-communist regime that was actually there by their own volition. We want them there. They left them alone. They left them alone. They had their protection. Where do we have our protection if not each other? No outside people are coming in to protect us. So we got to give the context. They're not being interfered with. They are not being interfered with. I got one more point, but then I'm going to stop because I went there because I was going to respond to Gamma from earlier.
Yeah. Allow me to interject a little bit because I want to give an opportunity to Gamma as well. But I also want to acknowledge people who are watching to read their comments here. I'll continue to read the comments by Michael Omondi. He did not finish it. I just stopped reading it. He continues saying that our heads of state should be paying top dollars for engineering, instructors, teachers, professors to come to teach our kids all aspects of engineering. And the innovation will naturally take its course. In the most developed African countries, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, the new generation is following Drake and Kardashians. We only have one chance to correct the direction that ship is going. Then he continues to say, but we need to educate the new generation, those 17 years old and less, about the importance to ensuring They preserve the legacy of our ancestors, built until the European came and ruined things. Then he continues, once you have two consecutive generations focused on the Western pleasures, you will not be able to reverse that trend. I am telling you, friends, you only get one chance to correct this entertainment obsession. Africans need to ask themselves what these foreign religion have done to our people. Continue so many things. Well, Mr. Michael Omondi, please, you can send us this long text in our email, oneafricaofficial@gmail.com. I would love to have this document of you writing all these comments. Please, if you can send that in one document, I really appreciate it. Gamma Cuba, you have been quiet for a while. I'll give you a chance to say that we are heading towards the end. And I know tonight you had something to say after this. So I'll give a chance to you after that. And then I'll end up with Mr. Ezra here.
Colleagues, let me first say thank you to the Swahili Nation viewers for keeping this project alive. And I want to say thank you to the founder, Micah, for putting us together. And I want to say thank you to the panelists for robustly and intellectually engaging into this conversation. Colleagues, my closing remarks are public intellectual, and this means it's general knowledge. So this means it's not special knowledge. But more so, I hope it inspires you before you expire. And so these are my closing remarks, colleagues. Until we as Africans develop Afrocentric interests, and we as continental Africans learn sacrifice. And I love something one of the panelists spoke about when they spoke about sacrifice. And this is what love is rooted in, self-love. Love is sacrifice. We must be willing to sacrifice ourselves so we can set up the next generation. I've been living with my son for under a month now, and I've learned to adjust. The boy is a 3-year-old. He is ignorant as they come. He is energetic as they are born. And he is talkative as they come. A lot of the shit that he's filled with, they say he's like me. But one thing I've learned is to adjust and sacrifice for this young boy who one day will be a young man. Africa is a young boy becoming a young man. And if we are to be the fathers tomorrow, we are to sacrifice our egos. We are to sacrifice our personal ambitions. We are to sacrifice our status. We are to sacrifice our fame. We are to sacrifice our desires so we can set up a whole generation. And colleagues, until we get to this position of understanding, inculcative, Afrocentric sacrifice, how can we set up a generation? And from inspiration, I would put on my own steps, colleagues, that I would like to contribute. I call for an Africa University, a One Africa University. A One Africa University that will have the best from every country in Africa, headed by the best African Americans, African British, African Asians, and wherever the African diaspora are. And I want to challenge us as the Africans who are in the continent, who are born here, to sacrifice our ego for the African American and open room for the African American to lead into innovation and leadership. Because colonialism and slavery was not about supplanting stupid blacks. It was about taking the best from among us.
Absolutely.
And from the backs of Europe and from the backs of Africans, Europe and America has been built. And so we must have room for the African American in Africa, brothers and sisters. And I always say when I speak to South Africans, you will forgive me out of Africans. I always say South Africa is a soft landing for the African American for a tough introduction into the rest of Africa. And so I ask you, brothers, that a One Africa University must be built by the dollars that are coming from the rest of Africa and from within Africa. And we should set up a university that is continental, that has all the lecturers, that is funded by the African Union. The best the African Union could do would be to fund a university and stop this political bullshit they are doing. And it will teach African history. African history of opposing colonialism. It will teach, because African history does not start with slavery. It was disturbed by slavery, my brothers and sisters. And so, my brothers and sisters, from an African university that is beyond Timbuktu, then we can be able to rewrite a narrative. We can be able to tell stories. I know some among us here, we want to be millionaires. But if we can focus all our effort and say we want to have a new university that will influence and promote African architecture, African technology and innovation, African culture and textile, African cuisines, African innovation, African agricultural practices, African chemistry and engineering and science. If we can focus on those things, my brothers, and say, what can we do now? And so then we start by joining the Swahili nation, by following Afrocentric media platforms that are promoting Afrocentric thinking. And then we follow those leaders as well. And I want to highlight something. The One Africa mentality, Pan-Africanism, is not an easy thing to actually assimilate into, brothers. It's not an easy thing. And I always listen to Micah when he speaks about One Africa, African interest. It took me a long time for it to turn to me. It took me a long time to have the passion and the desire of an Africa that exists in its sovereignty outside of the influence of the United States, outside of the influence of the European Union, outside of the influence of Asiatic interests. It is a hard thing to do. And I want to quote the great Marcus Garvey here. It says, and if another leader comes up after me and he teaches you to depend on another race for your freedom, that cannot be a leader of your people. My brothers and sisters, I want to challenge you today to do the impossible and for us to be visionaries and dreamers, not parrots who will continue to repeat what was said by some stupid scholar or by some intelligent scholar who came from another university. I want to challenge us to risk our egos and take on public intellectualism and take on topics like these on our statuses, on our Instagram, on our WhatsApp groups. And we let's hold one thing together and say, I have networks in South Africa that are high level and political, and they're in ministry and they're in business. And Micah says, I have high level networks that are political and they're in business and geopolitical. Another one says, I have this. And we say, how can we put those together to get to the African Union with a new agenda? Not this issue of 60-year-old saying Vision 2040. We say Agenda 1 in the next 10 years. We identify a location in Africa, and then we drive an Africa University. We say we want to build an Africa University with an Africa library, all African literature in one space. And then we start pouring in the younger kids into these universities. And the best of the best in our countries all over Africa come in. And with the forefront of arts and culture and the American, the United States, the British community, the Asiatic, all the diaspora at the forefront coming to work in those spaces to advance our communities. And I think that would be the first thing. And I think in line with what we're discussing today as I land my aeroplane, I am not anti-Israel. When I say Israel, I see both Arab and so-called Jew coming together in that land and praising Yahweh or Allah, irrespective of what religion. And so when I say pray for the peace of Israel, I mean pray for the peace of that strip of land, that strip of land may have peace. I don't mean pray for a certain religion. I don't mean pray for a certain group of people. But what is my current statement now? To hell with the comment of how will it affect us. To hell with the conflict. But power to the people who live under the tyrannical regime of Netanyahu and the leadership of Hamas. Power to those people who live under the tyrants who will continue to promote weaponry that is charged by capitalism. And I'm a capitalist and I'm a Christian, a bona fide Christian who believes in God of Israel, believes in Jesus Christ, that He is the Lord and Savior of my life. But I say openly to hell with the conflict in that strip of land, because it is not God-given. It is not in the interest of human beings. And I say as an African first, the most important thing are the human beings. And I agree with the brother that who said it's the most inhumane practice that has ever happened. So I do not side with Palestine. I do not side with Israel. I side with the suffering people. And I side because of my understanding of the suffering Christ. And I think most of us today have removed suffrage from the cross. You see, I'm still a Christian. And so it is how I interpret this conflict. But I know that as a South African that comes from a post-traumatic South Africa, coming from Black communities where the face of Black is poor, the face of Black is sickness, the face of Black is gangsterism. And I know with no doubt, brothers and sisters, that the suffering are the most vulnerable, the elderly are the most vulnerable, the differently abled are the most vulnerable, because they will not even be shortlisted for the military. And so, my brothers, I then say the second step is for us to write a petition to call for the denuclearization of the Middle East, whatever the middle of that place is. It must be denuclearized. It must be a second step we're taking from a university to saying that we cannot have two kids that are fighting, that are being armed. They must be disarmed. South Africa was disarmed. They must be disarmed. And if they have to fight, they must carry stick and stones. It should be an international crime for those areas to have weapons. And even if though we know that America will not let it happen, that is when I say capitalist America, the ultra-capitalists that do not practice healthy capitalism. Though we know that they will not do it, but it must be on their tables. It must go to the United Nations, my brothers and sisters. And then we say we want peace in that area. And peace will come if we de-weaponize, if we denuclearize. And lastly, we must decolonize religion, brothers and sisters. We must decolonize religion. And we must have a contextual version of what it means to be a Muslim, what it means to be a Christian in Africa. You must stand on that pulpit wearing your Tanzanian attire, your Xhosa beads, and lifting up God. You don't have to be an Arab for you to be a Muslim. You can wear your Tanzanian beads and still, read the Quran and quote the Surah, and still be proudly African. We must be against the Arabization of Black people. We must be against the westernization of Black people under the guise of religion. Because tomorrow the Chinese will come and they will promote Buddhism, and we will have to be Buddhists before, we will have to be Chinese before we can become Buddhists. So we must be critical, colleagues. And my last point, secularism does not work, colleagues. It does not work. It is a lie that came with enlightenment, and we cannot solve religious conflicts without looking at the monster of religion in the face by being religious and saying that this is a religious issue. It is satanic. We're going to pray about it. But after we finish praying about it, we're going to deconstruct Westernism from it. We're going to deconstruct Arabism from it. We're going to deconstruct Chinism from it. And we're going to put in Africanism. And so we must promote the religion of Africa. And in isiXhosa, we call the religion of Africa Inkolo Kantu, Inkolo Yesintu. We call it the religion of humanity, directly translating it from isiXhosa. And I'm not promoting ancestral veneration as to Niger would agree with me, you know, on promoting that, which is not my forte. I'm not in spiritism. I'm a Christian. But I am saying there's aspects in African traditional religion that promotes the love for humanity. Is seen to, gentlemen, humanism, just the basis of respecting human beings on the qualities of them being alive. And so I think that's something we must preach more, we must shout more. It's uncommon. I will keep saying it. It is a shame that we are worried about how it affects our economy when we are not worried about how it affects those lives of the people who are there. And I'm of the view that we have too many problems here for us to be worried about a country that's called the middle of somewhere when it's the middle of nowhere. And I'm also very against ethno-states, unless the world will allow us 1.4 billion people to promote an ethno-state in Africa and say Africa for Africans. So with that said, colleagues, peace first, human beings first, everything else will follow. Thank you so much. I'm super exhausted. I want to say thank you, brother. Really appreciate you. Thank you for the prayers. Let's keep praying for Israel.
You, man. Appreciate you, man. To Niger, I'm sorry, brother. I'll give you 1 minute because you said before, and then I'll be done with Israel.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, this conflict is not obviously it's not a good thing that people are dying needlessly. Most of all, this is needless suffering. But I guess from the point of view of some Israelis, they think that it has to happen. But from the point of view of Africans, we have to start seeking things that bind us together, something that is active, because in the end, it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a conflict. It can be something to do with, because the essential ingredient is unity, something that unites, something that binds closely. And I like what ATR said about 3% being needed to change systems. And one of the issues I have with all these things that are going on is, you know, Haitians, I think they've lost more than 2,000 people this year. And you look at North Africa, they died. And but whenever something happens to Israel, suddenly the whole world starts shaking, and America starts sending warship to cover them so that they can go and massacre people again. It's just, by the time this whole thing is done, you are going to see some of the most gruesome, inhuman, and abuse of humanity in this conflict. They are deliberately going to target civilians. They're going to target all kinds of stuff, all in the name of they want to get rid of Hamas, as if these conflicts started today. But it's just that's why I call it an evil war. It's just serving one purpose: to keep that region divided. That is the only purpose that war serves, and that should tell you the kind of forces that are keeping Africa where it is. They are very, very clever. They are keeping their hands dry and their face hidden from Africans, so we don't wake up to the truth of what we are, the dangers we face. And I really hope that the young generation, the ones that are coming up, wake up to this one way or the other. If we have to force it, we have to force it. I don't think it necessarily has to be a forced hot war, because if you look at China, they played this blinder without firing a shot. They didn't go to any war with anybody. And look at the nation they built. So you just have to be creative and smart and figure out a way out of this. The ones that are willing to do the necessary things, the hard things, they should be there to do those hard things. The Israel that you see today is not based on just their baby weapons. It's based on most of their clandestine activities. And those clandestine activities, they were ruthless. They were not taking prisoners. They fought for their people. After that, to be fair, they had a driving force. Again, after this Hitler event, what choice did they have? After they just saw millions of their own people get decimated, your mentality changes. Death is nothing to you. It's not an obstruction anymore. And the fact that human beings fear that is very, very weird, because we all end up dying anyway, and we somehow choose to we choose to avoid it and die without accomplishing any significant stuff, because we just fear it. And but when you've had certain experience, it opens your eyes that, oh my God, this death thing is not a big deal, really. I would choose to do this, and if I die, so be it. And you see what I mean? The continent, almost the entire black continent, or black community in the world have that mentality of debt is relatively something to avoid at all costs, without understanding that debt is part of what you're already heading towards it. It's a matter of what you choose to do with it while you're heading towards it. If you either use it to benefit the future generation, or you just waste it, you die for free. You know, I say it, most of the time we're just dying for free, you know, while other people are dying for something. So thank you very much. I hope our next generation learn to understand that death is inevitable. It's not something you should fear. You shouldn't just seek it anyway. You should try to avoid it as much as possible. But when it comes and it's for the greater good, embrace it, because your life would have been worth more than most of the people that have lived in the last 50 years in Africa that just died for nothing. They didn't, because they didn't understand. They just think that, you know, let's embrace life. If you embrace life too much, destruction comes after, follows it. You know, is it not the Bible that said there's a way that seemeth right unto a man, but there is always the way of destruction. And the continent, we've been spoiled. We've been spoiled. We're made to feel like there's no danger out there, no real danger. The only danger we see is our fellow Africans. But it's there. It's there. It's hidden behind. It's right there. We are seeing it in Israel, in all the other parts of the world. Somehow we think we are kind of isolated from it, because it's never really happened within a black country, where you see these first world countries bring their aircrafts and missiles and everything and come and decimate our community. We've not seen it. If we had seen it, the way we look at the world would be different. And I think that the diaspora has to have this function, because if you look at what America is doing today for Israel, they are offering Israel a diplomatic cover, they are offering Israel a military cover, and nobody is offering us any cover. And we have massive diasporas around the world. They should be exerting their own power, because if you have that kind of power to exert, what tends to happen is that if Africa wants to go and do anything, the effect of what America is going to do to Africa will be less, because they will be able to dull the action. They will say, okay, take it easy. You don't have to do that. If you do that, I'm not going to vote for this thing that you want. We're going to go and protest on the streets. You know, will cause problems. And I believe is the presence of African Americans in that country is why America doesn't do the way they do with other continents within the black continent. That's why they don't do that, because they know if African Americans go there, they will see Africans, and they're not going to like what America is doing, and it's going to be a big problem for them. So they don't like to tangle with Africa like that. And I think that shows you that African Americans have power they don't even realize yet. Because they are part of a club that they are not exerting their membership rights. You know, America is the most powerful country in the world. Africa shouldn't be going through what it is going through with a massive population of black people in that country like that. But because they too have been disempowered, and I think the way to solve that problem is both sides working together, Africa and African Americans working together. That's how it's going to work. Yeah. But the American state tries to prevent that at all costs, and that is why they make so much effort to keep us apart. African countries are going to the UN every year. How many of them go and meet the African American community? From Kenyan president, Tanzania, all of them, they go to America every year for UN assembly, but they never meet them. They never meet them. They keep them separate from themselves. So it tells you that this is the system that we have that is keeping us in check. Is stronger than we think, because it doesn't kill African Americans and the Europeans to come together, and the African leaders to come together and say, okay, let's talk together, let's see what we can do. You know, let's see business you guys can come and do, and we come here, we work together like the Jews do. But we don't do that, and it tells you that there is something keeping us apart, and maybe that is a more efficient way to target, to make this change that we are looking for, because there are ways you can make change without necessarily blowing the whole world up. China did it. They were very clever about it, and they were threatened with they threatened China that they were going to nuke China if China wants to go nuclear, but they did anyway. And part of it is because they were like, what have we got to lose? Is it that? Okay, we've just seen it, so there's nothing you can threaten us with anymore. And fear is a big problem, and the fear is of danger is often more dangerous. So I would like to just stop there. I know you gave me a minute. I'm sorry I went a little bit over. So let me just keep it brief there. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Niger. Always good to have you in sight. And now I got your email, so no worries. Niger, I'm not gonna leave you, my brother. I'll give you as well 1 minute to say your final thoughts.
So I believe that Africa needs the civilians, which is us, to unite. What I mean by that is, if you count back a decade ago, I don't think Africans were on platforms like this discussing solutions and problems in Africa. Africans were, if you were in Tanzania, you were talking about Tanzania, from Nigeria, discussing Nigeria. No, we didn't have a Pan-Africanism youth platform. So now the diasporans, Africans, are coming together on panels to discuss solutions. But we need to take it a step further. We need to start creating goals that have concrete, achievable goals that we can work towards and put actions behind. Like the brother said about, the One Africa University. If that's something that we can all come together and figure out how to raise money, it doesn't have to be a grand university like we have in institutions. It can be a small office building that does university online, where people can join and we can educate, because education is the main thing about universities, and then educate people, and we can have an in-person, classes and stuff like that. But I truly believe that if we can get together and start working together, and not just keep talking, all of us together can start working towards things. And then when we gain power, when we accumulate power through unity, then just like the West and China and Russia influence our politicians, we can then start influencing our politicians as well, whether it's by lobbying them or just by befriending them, because now we have power and we can probably by then dictate how people vote within each country, because we've gained influence on people and trust. So these are the kind of things that I would like to see us in Africa do before we start thinking about our politicians, because they're not leaders. I call them politicians myself as well. They're not leaders. So I would like to see us, now that we are all uniting. There's a lot of people in the diaspora. There's a lot of African Americans. There's a lot of people in London, UK, Germany, Jamaica, the Caribbean, that are now in tune with Africa. This is all new within the last, 5, 6, 7 years now, and it's only getting stronger. So we need to figure out a way to use this that we have now, this time that we have, and make the best of it and put in actions. I like to see actions and not just talk. And that's, I'm gonna leave you all with this.
Appreciate my brother. I think Nikki, I gave you a chance already, right? So I'm just gonna wrap up with my brother Ezra. Ezra, you have your final thoughts before I let you guys.
Real quick. To Niger. Oh, he left. Okay, never mind.
Oh yeah. Yes, His Excellency.
His Excellency. In closing, looking at now, looking in Africa, looking at us as Africans, a way forward. When the world is making noise and there's a lot of things that are happening all over the world, I think we're on the right track as Africans. I know that sometimes when we think of unity, we are thinking this mass revolution from Cape to Cairo, from Dakar to Mombasa, from all the the countries in the Caribbean islands, and even in the US, in Europe and stuff. But when I say we're on the right track, is it's such movements that are going to help us.
Yeah. My brother will continue. All right.
Oh, sorry. So like this, I think for us as Africans, for where we want to go, um, platforms like Swahili Nation, One Africa, it's where we need to start. And we shouldn't cry for the big revolution where the whole world is now knowing that Africa is rising. Now Africa has found itself. But Africa is finding itself through me and you, and a lot of people out there. I think sometimes we just think we are just a small community who are woke, who are like so informed. But there's a lot of people out there, and for those who are seeing the vision, for those who believe in the vision of Africa and the development of Africa, and Africa reaching its full potential, let us start working. Let us continue working. Let us not just talk and say, let us not be negative all the time, thinking things are not being done. Whatever we can do, let's do what we can do. Because as you all know, that some of the progress in life, as you know, some people will not join you when you start, but other people will meet us on the way. Other people will meet us when we finish the race. Other people will look until they see something is moving, then they start joining. So as for us that are doing this and who are pro-Africa and who are thinking of seeing Africa united, this is unity as well. Let us not underestimate the different countries that are meeting just here on this platform. How many countries? 4 or 5 countries. Just us here, it's 4 or 5 countries, and a lot of other countries that are also like on the chat or on the comment section, and others who are not even commenting and just watching. So this is also unity. Let us not underestimate the power of unity, and just look at it in a bigger scale only. But this is a bigger scale, but maybe quietly, not just in your face, maybe not in the mainstream, on the so-called big channels and stuff. But this is unity that we are doing as Africans, and we are leading by example. So as we're doing this, let us not stop. Let us be encouraged. Let us continue this journey, and let us keep on spreading the message of African development, African progress, and the success of Africa, and not stop believing. Let us not stop believing in Africa. No one will ever believe for us. We need to believe that Africa will develop, and Africa needs to be built by us, not somebody else, not us blaming others all the time, not us playing the victim, but us saying, you know what? Yes, this is happening. This has happened. We are taking a journey. We are taking a path, and this is the plan of how we're gonna do it. So in every platform, whether it's Swahili Nation, this is a platform and a pro-African platform where it's doing something. And if you are in, somebody said they're doing crypto. If you're in Forex, doing that to make money and also fund your other projects to develop Africa, let's do that. If you're in music, to put music in Africa and to the world, do it. And also share it with the other Africans so that they know about your music. Let's do everything like that can really bring progress to Africa. But let's not just look at ourselves, but think the world needs this and Africans also need this. So whatever we're doing, we're on the right track. Let us be encouraged, and we are going to get there. That's just something in short from my side.
His Excellence, thank you, man. Thank you. You've been my co-host today. You've been very faithful. I appreciate my brother. But I forgot, Mr. Nick. Nick, I'll give you that 1 minute, man, to share your final thoughts. 1 minute.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you having us all here together once again. So there was a couple points I wanted to stick on when they were saying the Black Americans and everything like that. Many of us do make a distinction between the term African American and Black American, because what Europeans like to do is they like to have people labeled as foreigners, and that's what they do to us, because you don't ever hear European American. Also, the term that where it's saying Black African, it should literally just be African equals Black. That's a given. And anybody else, you put a title in front of them like they would do anybody that they would classify as the other. I think we should be careful with that, because that's a subtle way of us saying Africa does not belong to Black people when it actually is. You don't hear the term white American. You just hear American. But getting to the point where he said, I think it was Ezra or somebody else, or Gamma, I think one of the two, said something about working with Black Americans. Yeah, I've tried to reach out plenty of times, and you're going to hear this echo with anybody that is really coming from my background, generally speaking, not somebody that's pandering. I tried to reach out many times. I've been to over 90 countries. Most of those, well, actually, a third of those were in Africa. And I've gone to places in Tanzania. I've gone to places in East Africa, South Africa, West Africa, all over. And it is very hard to get somebody to generally work with you. And I mean, with the government and regular people. If it's somebody trying to get money out of us, sure, they're going to talk very nice. When it comes to doing anything with any movement, I got to be honest, it's like hitting a brick wall. It is like hitting a brick wall. I meet a couple of people and they're okay to reach out. But the mass of people that I reach are people that will be like, they're on my side, and then they're here to undermine. There was somebody that was here some weeks ago. They had I'll put it this way, and I want you guys to just do your own research. They were saying, hey, let's do some reparations or something like that. Now, we have our own claim here. We got CARICOM that's doing a reparations thing. Now we got all of Africa saying, get reparations from Europe. Now, what they've done is they had a reparations rally in Atlanta, of all places. Has nothing to do. It's leaving out Black Americans completely. That's the whole thing. It's leaving out Black Americans. So when they're saying reach out, I would urge people to say, I will hope you're doing it genuinely speaking, and it sounds nice, but my experience, even though I'm still doing it, that's what I'm saying. I'm still doing it, but I'm going to tell you the good and the bad and the ugly. I'm still doing it, but there's a lot of people that are there literally purposely trying to undermine. And one of the things I would say, if somebody's genuine, you give automatic citizenship to the diaspora. That includes us. Because when they say automatic citizenship to people, it's not including Black Americans. Every single time these conversations occur, it's, nah, Black Americans are not included. Even though a lot of the reason why a lot of the nations in Africa were liberated were because Black Americans came on planes, came into Africa, until the U.S. government literally had to pass a law to make it illegal for us to fly over in the 1950s and 60s to come over there. And then they said, hey, we're going to Europe. That was the trick. We're going to Europe. And then they went to Europe. Then they flew another plane and went into Africa to help the liberation struggles that were happening, help defend Ethiopia, help apartheid South Africa to get from under the apartheid. So there were people literally using our bodies to fly on planes to come over to Africa, but it has not been reciprocated. Now, I'll put most of that blame on the so-called leaders, but that can't happen without a willing public. And the last point I'll make on that is we do realize our power over here. It's just that the United States government had taken a policy to say we're going to bring in people that look like them. This is even this is public knowledge. Now, you guys might not know that. I know it because I live and I've grown up in the United States. But they said we're going to bring in people that look like them, that have an anti-Black American, they said Negro at the time, an anti-Negro American mindset. And that's what we face over here. So when I see a Jamaican, when I see a Kenyan, when I see a Haitian, when I see somebody from Ethiopia, when I see that, I can show you my messages on WhatsApp with people that are here. They will have it and call us racist. I'm like, we're the same race. I don't know how I'm racist, but they'll say, hey, we're name calling or something like that, and say, hey, how come you're not working with us like we're trying to work with you? And our finger is getting chopped. So just realize that's what we are facing, because there are Black people going to Ghana and building it up, but there isn't like a real wide reciprocation all over Africa. So that's one of the conversations I urge people to have with each other. If they're going to do it, automatic citizenship at the very least, if nothing else, because that will make it a lot easier to just, all right, we're getting on a plane and we're going over. Because right now it's very difficult for us to you think it's easier because we're American, but again, that's white people. That's not Black Americans. Black Americans, we travel. Black Americans, we go to try to build up, but we get met with a lot of resistance. And I meet a lot of resistance. I work with who I can, and everybody else, I just kind of, that's who it is. I don't take any hard feelings with it because I understand. When you get people that are miseducated, sometimes that's going to happen. I take it in stride, but it's not like I'm not going to say it because this is something that needs to be said. But to end off on a lighter note, I will say that once again, thank you, Micah, for having this conversation here. And I think that ultimately the result of this and many other conversations will lead people that are listening to this to start a business, to start groups, to start running for office, and to pile their money together. Because there are people that spend $2,000, $4,000 US dollars to get over to Europe, to get over to US. I think some of those same people, if you're listening and you thought of going to France, you thought of going to the UK, you thought of going to Canada or the US, because those are the most popular spots. Ukraine was another one. But if you think this is my message to you. Take the same money that you were going to go to their university, because they need you to have a minimum amount of money in your bank. I know this because there's so many people I helped even do that. Even though I disagree with them, I still help them because I'm not here to judge them. They're trying to do a better life. Hey, you know what? I'm going to make sure you do it in the safest way, because there are illegal means they could do it and they could risk their life. Take that same money you were going to put and find somebody that's like-minded. Start and open up a farm. Start and open up a media company. Start and open up anything else. Wigs, cosmetics. Get some education in engineering. If you're going to go over there, get engineering, not some of the stuff that you guys are doing. And once you learn how to do the engineering, bring it back and open up a manufacturing plant in Uganda. Open up a manufacturing plant in Nigeria. Open up a manufacturing plant in Democratic Republic of Congo, because they need that knowledge there. They don't have it. So for you that have the money, okay, great. You're going to go over there, go to the universities for engineering, go to the universities for something that then you bring back. This is what India did at one point. This is actually what China did. Those are the two things I can point out. A lot of the Indians stayed, to be honest, but the Chinese actually, most of them came back to China unless they opened up a business in the US or somewhere else. But I want to leave you guys with that. Please, please, please take this as a serious thing. If you pull your money together, you are unstoppable. They cannot stop you. You got the resources already. You literally have it. What are they going to do? Call their bluff. And that's what I got to say.
Right. Appreciate, brother, for your thoughts as well. This is food for thoughts. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me and us here today, for your thoughts and everything. Follow up with this conversation. I'll reach out to you guys, and maybe we could have a follow-up sessions in the coming days, when you guys will be available. So I really appreciate it. I'm going to let you go for now, and I'm just going to remain here by myself to wrap up this session. I appreciate you so much, and special thanks to all the speakers that have been here today. Those who already left, I appreciate you guys so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nigel. God bless, man. God bless. His Excellence, I appreciate, man, for being here and, for hosting this with me. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure, brother.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right. I'll let you guys go for now. All right, guys. Let me just take a moment to appreciate as well the super chat. I did not have time to say names, but I would love to mention name. We have our sister Nana Dreams. Thank you so much for the super chat you've given, and want to appreciate to Anki Sios Men for your super chat as well. Asimba Mbala for your super chat and for the membership as well. Appreciate you guys so much. Also, let me take an opportunity as well to appreciate the member in the house. All right, you guys, you make these things possible these days. All right, so I want to appreciate the members in the house. I appreciate so much all these members right here. I'll just display the names to appreciate. And we just had Asim Bambala who joined just a couple minutes ago. Here, okay, the last person was 3 days ago, but we appreciate all of you guys for joining and becoming a member. We appreciate so much. Some of you have been members for 24 days, for 1 month, for 11 months, for 17 months. All right. I think the longest one here is 22 months, which is Temesgen, and who else? Those I think are seniors here. And Shendan, Kelly Brown, Thomas, this is 22, Melanga, and Alex YT. All these people are 22 months. That's like 12 months is 1 year. And 22, it's almost like, oh my God, it's 2 years, almost 2 years, only 2 months to be 2 years. Yeah, that people have been here members for 2 years, supporting Swahili Nation One Africa. So we appreciate you guys so much for standing here with us and for supporting us. You're able to run these things, man, because of your support. All right. I mean, if you don't, okay, if you're doing YouTube, then you realize that it's very costful. But if you don't, then I'll just let you know that it's very costful. And people like these members, and also I want to appreciate the Patreon. The family has been sharing there in the comment section, like join Patreon. Well, I wanna appreciate the Patreon as well, who are supporting and joining us as well. We have let me see here the number of the Patreon we have so far. Everything is clear actually on our page of Patreon, so you can go and check this out. This is helping us a lot, guys. You have no idea. So we have like 22 members. And I want to appreciate you guys. So let me pull your names right here. All right. Because it's actually public there. So that's why I'm sharing here as well. It is public. That's why I'm sharing here as well on the media. It's very important to acknowledge. We've been talking about Africa. We need to do that, but also we should have the moment to appreciate those who are standing with us. All right, these people, they're standing with us. So I want to appreciate all these guys. If you see this paid, you have to know these are patronas who paid. Forget about decline. Look at the paid. Forget about the fraud. There's a fraud too. But look at the paid. So all these paid, you see, these are 22 different people who have been supporting us for a while. Yeah. All these paid. These are different patronas who have been here with us. Some people 3 months have been here, 9 months. Yeah, I think that is the long 9 months, 25 months. Great. This is the longest one right here, 25 months. So I appreciate another one, 25 months, Asata. Okay, no, per month. I got mistake. Yeah. All right. I appreciate Madam Asata have been really busy these days. She's planning to move to Africa, to Uganda, and she emailed me a couple days ago to just appreciate the session we do, because she said that she said something really important. She said, something that because of the sessions, because of these talks that we do, then she's really moving forward, and it's just beautiful. Like, she just want to live more. You know what I'm saying? She's like 60 plus of age, and she said she's watching us every day. She hasn't been able to join on the live stream because of the different task and works, but she watches every day, and every time she watches us, she gets this this desire to continue to live more, because she has a hope for Africa. And when I read emails like that, it really encourages me to understand that, oh my goodness, thank God for what you're doing through this family, and thank you, because we were called to impact this world, and we're called to impact Africa as well. And this impact you're talking about, it doesn't matter about the number. I'll tell you the truth. The people who are working with me, they know that very well. I don't really care about the numbers, but even if we have 1 person, 2 people, 10 people who they really feel like they had a day, all right, and their lives have been transformed in a certain way because of what we do, then we see it as a as a success. All right, because it doesn't really matter about the number, but it matters of what you are doing. I believe I'm not gonna be asked like how many people are following you, but I'll be asked how many people did you impact. You know what I'm saying? That will be the question I'll be asked. So I'm really appreciating for those people as well. My brother Pan Afro, I think I see you for the second time. You're giving actually one of the largest super chat that we have here on YouTube. So I want to extend my gratitude to you as well for this super chat. Thank you. I don't take it for granted. I've seen you here, I think, for the third time doing the same thing. Mr. My Resolve for Africa, AU Republic, One Africa. So Pan Afro Patriarch, I appreciate you. And for that, I appreciate so much. And please, if you can, you can send us email at oneafricaofficial@gmail.com. Me and the team would love to send our gratitude a little bit personally, through the mail. So if you can, please hit us up, send us email at oneafricaofficial@gmail.com. I appreciate so much for that generosity. Yeah. So, family, we also have the petition, as we say, sign the petition of One Africa right now. All right. Please go and sign that. The link is in the comment section. Our sister Marie just shared in the comment section. So please go and share. It means a lot. Go and read and sign and then share that petition with others. We need as many signatures as we can, and it's still out there. So please do that. All these things, I did not say my final thoughts, but all these things that we're discussing today, my final thoughts will be that we really need One Africa right now. All right. We really need One Africa right now, because this is the only way that we as Africans, we can escape. This is the only way that we as Africans will be respected in the international spheres. Everybody right now, they're coming together. We have EAU, we have, EU, we have USA, we have, everybody's coming together to form some sort of alliance. And I think it's the time for Africa to really rebuild African Union and to have that unity that we have been desperate wanting for so long time. All right. We need to have that. I asked the question that, what can we do as Africans to avoid these collateral damages that are coming to us, right? We just need to be puppets all the time. That's how they see us. They see us as puppets, our leader as puppets, that they can just do whatever we tell them to do. They need to pick the side. Whatever United States are there, they need to be there. Whatever European Union are there, we don't have our stand. We don't stand by ourselves. But one of the issues that we don't have unity, we don't have a strong say. That's why the continent is very easy to be divided. Our brother Gama here to say today, Africa and African Union is supposed to come with one say that, what, we condemn whatever killing that is happening. And we are standing with all these people, these innocent people. It's very important for us to stand with the people and just leave aside this politics of the world, because a lot of people are benefit from what is happening, right? They're selling some guns, they're selling some trucks, they're selling all this stuff, and they're making a lot of money. So war in Africa, war in around the world, it is the multi-billion-dollar industry, and people are making money out of that while others are dying. People, they don't even hesitate to sacrifice few just to get money. People are working for money. But our stand should be together. We should stand together and have the same say. But when you have this say that, we stand with that, even in our continent, eventually we'll find ourselves fighting because of somebody else who is fighting outside there. All right. We cannot afford to do that. We need One Africa right now. And one step towards that, please sign this petition. And also, that's why we're having this conversation. I appreciate all the panelists who were here today, spending here time like more than 3 hours. It's not an easy job, guys. These guys, they have jobs. These guys, they have families. For example, the host that I was hosting with me, His Excellency Ezra, he was just coming back from home at 9 p.m. when we started this session. And he asked me if we could start at 9:15 because he was still coming back home. So he just got at home. He did not even spend time with his family, and he just jumped in the session. And then we had this session for 3 hours plus, and he was here all the time. So we're sending gratitude to them, and people in the chat as well who have been here, we're sending gratitude to you. This is not in vain. We're not just here to talk. We're not just here to entertain, but we really need One Africa right now. So you guys help us out by liking and sharing that petition of One Africa right now. And I don't take for granted of all the support that I get from the comment section as well. The comments, you guys have been there. The team have been amazing. You guys have been sharing the link. I've been sharing whatever, man. I can't do this thing on my own, but I have the team that is dedicating all the time here in the comment section. We have, Nana Dream. We have, Sherry. We have Marit. All the people you see with the little, the different kind of color in the names. These are people who are really helping us to really, do. So if you see their comments in the comment section, you know that I'm sending that comment, right? Whatever they say is what Swahili Nation we say. So also listen to them, because if you're not listening to them, they have a job to take you guys out, So listen to them as well. We don't want to take anyone out, but it's better to stick together. United States of Africa, AU Republic, one African continent, all nations, Pan-Afro. Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%, and that's what we stand for. Yeah, and that's what we want to see in this beautiful continent. So, guys, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate. I'm just gonna finish up with a word of prayer, and then you will see me when you see me. All right, you see me anytime here. Yeah, but there's a big surprise this week. A big surprise. Let me just stop there. Yeah, and BJ as well, our team right there. So I appreciate you guys. Everybody who has been here, man. Everybody. You see the team, you see me. We all appreciate you guys. We love you. Thank you for everything. Right? I appreciate you that. And yeah, so let me just end up with prayer, and then I'll be getting out of here and go to get some rest until tomorrow. Right? God, I thank you for today. I appreciate for this wonderful session we had. We had 3 hours and a half, almost 4 hours right now, of just talking about this beautiful continent, having root cause analysis and going through some details and just having different opinions from our people in the comment section and those who were here to speak. Some people, they wanted to be here to speak, but they did not have a chance today. But I appreciate for everything, God. Our desires as Africans is to see us breaking out of this shackle of neo-colonialism and the stagnant position that we've been here for so long, 60 plus years after independence, after independence. And we really have to develop. We really have to change. We really have to transform this. So this generation that is coming out, the current generation, the younger generation that is coming out, God, I pray that but the wisdom and the knowledge and understanding, our mind and our souls be open, God, to fight the right fights, to fight the right cause. Because not every good thing is right, but what is just and right, it is more acceptable and pleasing before God than sacrifice. So we want to fight what is right. We want to fight the right fights, the right battles. Not everyone, but the right battles that we are supposed to fight. So help us to come together, help us with that knowledge, bring us together, but most importantly, protect our motherland. Remember those who are suffering right now, innocent people, innocent lives. Remember those who are dying right now in Sudan, in our very own continent. Remember those who are dying in different corners of Africa, in Congo, in our very own continents, Ethiopia, Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, in our very own continent. God, remember them. And as we keep marching towards that Africa we want, the one Africa in our generation, one Africa right now, God, we pray that we'll continue to move boldly and creating this system that will work for our generation. Our kids will be in a better place than where we are right now and today. And even those politicians, well, most of them, they're holding on to positions in our countries. Pray that their mind will be opened and they will know their responsibility and duty, that they're here to serve and not to be served. I give you thanks, I give you glory, and thank you for this opportunity to lead this family and to lead this session today. All the glory, honor, and praise, we give it back to you. Everything that has happened, may you be glorified. And help us, God. Until next time we see each other again. In your precious name, Christ, I pray. Amen. Amen and amen. guys, thank you. And I love you. And I'll see you very soon. Remember to subscribe, remember to like, remember to share, and remember to share our channel with somebody out there. All right. If you didn't subscribe, do that right now and turn on notification button so that you get our notification every time we release new videos. All right. Appreciate it, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey guys, 93% of people who are watching our channel, Swahili Nation, have not yet subscribed. Only 7% of the viewers in this channel have subscribed. What does that mean? It means a lot of people are coming in this channel to watch videos, but they do not want to be engaged, to be a part of this family and to support this movement and what we're working for towards One Africa in our generation. So my request to all of you guys, if you really like our content, you like what we're doing here in Swahili Nation, please do me a favor and subscribe to this channel. Don't do just that. Turn on notification button. Don't stop there. Like the videos we share. Share with your friends. Leave your comments, your opinion, so that we may actually interact in the comment section, know what is happening. If you would like to support us even more financially, you can join the Patreon. The link is below. And also you can join us and become a member of this family. So please, guys, do us a favor. When you subscribe, when you like, when you share, you help us to reach to as many people as we can. We want this world to be filled with the positive message about Africa and One Africa, and we want the message to go all across the world. So help us by becoming part of this family. I love you. So Africa, a place where poverty and pandemic diseases are originated, the least wealthy continent per capita, the land where the only things to be found are animals, corrupted leaders, poor kids, dirty water and civil wars, people who are in need for help, donations and support, aka the NGO's motherland. For others, honestly, Africa is just a very hot, dark and sad place everyone wishes to escape one day. Well, whether you're an African or not, this thinking isn't new to you, because you have read, heard or felt the same way before. Just type the word Africa on Google right now. Turn on your TV and see what the NGOs portray. Watch movies from Hollywood. Ask your mama, friends, or ask yourself, what is Africa? Yet if you're still struggling to believe, let me ask you this. What comes to your mind when you hear the word Africa? Tell me the first thought that comes to your mind right now. Honestly, tell me right now. But what really is Africa? What is Africa? Listen, there are many theories about the name, but one that is close to the truth is Al-Kebulan. This name translates to Mother of Mankind, or according to other sources, the Garden of Eden, the place where love, peace and unity dwells. Al-Kebulan is an extremely old word. Many nations in Africa use this word, including Ethiopians, Nubians, Moors and Numidians. for me, this isn't just the theory, but the truth. My truth I choose to believe in. As cliche as it sounds, that's the future I'm hoping for. The tomorrow I'm fully determined to see. The dream I am convinced and dedicated to fighting for until it happens. What is Africa for you?
So the lie began from the very beginning of time, right? And I can ask you one question right now. What does history tell you about Africa? Who discovered Africa? If you write right now on Google who discovered Africa, you find out that is one white man that he came and discovered Africa. And you can ask yourself that how can you discover a place that already exists? How can you discover a place that people already live in that place? It is impossible, but that's what the history tells us. That's what people believe about Africa, that it was discovered by a white man. This guy, he came, and then he went back, he gave a report, and then the next we know is colonialism, because those guys, they sat somewhere to divide Africa like a piece of cake, because they discovered it, they own it, it belonged to them. But that is us. We discovered, we're the first people to know. And today you have a lot of people around the world that they think that Africa was discovered by them.